Better not fuck it up this time.
See, guys, see, chat. Everyone's toxic to me. It's not just Loco.
Yeah, dude, I've been getting way too much Reddit positivity lately. I'm just gonna flame both of you. You're both fucking replaceable. How about that?
Damn,
just go the fuck off and then get Reddit back on my side. I'm real uncomfortable out here.
All right, Loco, go ahead.
Testing.
How was Reddit for you this week, Loco?
I honestly don't check Reddit anymore. Oh my god, dude.
It was
Reddit
everywhere.
is just so fucking garbage.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yep.
They're like, okay, I actually want to explain a bit. And people are like, please be nice to Deagle on this episode. Like,
yeah,
last three episodes, we've been having tech problems, and I've been helping fixing them. And then it just fucking set me off because I'm like trying to fix the tech problem again, and then you're like, "Don't teach me." Oh my fucking god!
It's fine, dude. It's
I will say I lost my cool, and I should definitely be sorry, and I am sorry. I should apologize, but you fucking like, holy fuck! You kept pressing the button.
I just want to test my levels. You're both replaceable. 1, 2, 3. You're both replaceable. 1, 2, 3. Can you hear me?
Right.
Coming in loud and clear.
Slightly less replaceable person testing. Is my levels good? More replaceable person.
Hang on.
How are the levels?
Let me fix the levels. Go ahead. Keep going, Loco.
Okay. That's a slight.
Oh, what happened, Loco? You got muted. Who? How did that happen?
Go fuck yourself.
All right. Hey, guys. Welcome back to Facecheck. Obviously, a lot happened this week, so we're going to try to break down as much as we can. To my right, obviously, Dom, willing to flame anybody and everybody. And to the left, everything in this small little box to the left is Loco. He's here. He survived the
Reddit's new favorite.
social media and Twitter and
Dude,
all
that's
the
not even.
YouTube.
That's nothing. I go through so much controversies in like the last 5 years. This is like number 10. Do you think this shit hurts me? No way.
I don't think it hurts you. I just don't, I don't think.
Dude, I was just so surprised. I'm like, so did anyone actually watch outside of the first minute of the show?
I don't think so.
That's what I was wondering, because like every comment, like it wasn't like some of the comments were about it. Literally, I went through the whole thread, and then all my YouTube comments, and every single one was just about like, oh man, like I don't even know like why they even do this show anymore, dude. Like, what the fuck is wrong with these people? Like, they clearly all hate each other, and the content's. It's like, wait, what the fuck? Like, how did it turn so quickly?
I don't know. I had a great week, man. Everyone was
Go fuck
so
yourself.
nice to me.
Oh my fucking god! People had no context or whatever.
No, the good thing about Loco getting shit on is that people indirectly compliment me, not because they want to compliment me, but just because it helps them shit on somebody harder. Because we've talked about it before. The way Reddit works is in order to shit on somebody, they always have to compare it to somebody they like. So right now, it's just giving me more props. So like Loco's just taking the bullet for the rest of our our crew here.
For sure. Loco definitely took the bullet. It might have been self-inflicted, but he took the bullet.
He shot himself, but
oh my fuck. You fucked my gun up, Daniel. Get the show started. Get the fucking show started. Okay? We get you for one thing. That's all we fucking ask you to do.
Guns don't kill people. People kill people. Just kidding.
True.
I'm just kidding.
True, actually.
All right, let's kick things off before things get too political. We're going to start off with talking about LCS, just LCS in general after 4 weeks. So we have the matches, but what about the LCS as a whole? The content there, the way the stream has been playing, the level of the league, and it really started things off with a tweet coming from 100 Thieves, John Robinson, who goes by Ron Jobinson, talking about the viewership. LCS is now being split between Twitch and YouTube today. 2 years ago, it was 80% Twitch. The gaming pie is growing, and YouTube is taking a bigger slice. And here, if you could take a look at the image that we have for you, it's 123,000 viewers on Twitch and 115,000 on YouTube. John also tweeted that one out. And so it really got us thinking about, kind of the state of the LCS, because when you talk about the LEC, you talk about other regions, you talk about growth, experimentation, trying different things. But here at the LCS, sometimes it feels like we're lagging behind, and there's kind of this sentiment. So why don't we kind of recap where we're at with the LCS in 2020 after 4 weeks?
So regarding like the YouTube and the Twitch viewership and John Robinson tweeting about it, like every tweet is somewhat political, right? Like there's an agenda you want to push. 100 Thieves are very, very closely tied to YouTube.
They
like
love
it's
it.
Not, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, Courage that went over there. Valkyrie went over there. Like 2 of their biggest streamers do it, so they just want to like hype up YouTube.
Yeah, so and also like Nadeshot is really good friends with Foods, who is head of YouTube gaming.
Fuck that guy. Just for the record, just get that in real quick. Just fuck that guy. I have my own personal money.
Unless you want to sponsor Facecheck YouTube, then unfuck you Foods. But in the case you're not going to sponsor Facecheck, then fuck you Foods.
I hate people like that because he didn't know anything about me, and when I got banned in season 2, he went on some like whole like tirade. Like he had some whole segment on an episode where he just shit on me, and he's like, "Oh, like Curse moved me into their house because they thought that like I'd be like, you know, good to have in the environment because I was still like a really good player at that point." And he just like shit on me for fucking like 20 minutes straight. Just like this guy was like toxic. If he was this toxic, he's just gonna ruin the team, ruin the house, like all this shit. Where he had no idea like who I was or like anything about me. It's just like he wants to have an opinion, but he doesn't want to do any research.
Wait. Who is he? How did he have an opinion on you?
He was on Machinima. Like there's like a Machinima versus thing.
Oh, he was part of Machinima.
Yeah, so he was like a host on that shit, and he just shit on me for 20 minutes for no reason, and then he pretended like he met me in real life and he pretended like everything was fine. Like it was just so insane. People like that, man, I just can't stand. I can never stand it. I will never forgive. I never forget. Fuck those people, man.
Damn,
just put it out there.
You really don't forget because this is from forever ago.
Yeah, this is like 8 years ago. Yeah, no, because anytime if somebody strikes me, it's like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. You're uneducated on it, and you just like are shitting on me for no reason. When that becomes like a thing where I just identify you as having that character trait, I'm just not gonna be, you know, down with you forever, man. That's just how it goes.
Okay, let's move on to a different topic. Dom, what do you think of co-streaming?
What do I think of co-streaming? I think it's horrible, man. I fucking hate it. It's garbage, you know. Like, what am I supposed to say? Of course,
everybody's your
okay. So what am I supposed to say about? Of course, it's fucking really good, like insane. I mean, it's like it's the best viewership I've had like at that time during the day. Like, I don't know. I feel like it's super good because it gives the ability to have like other perspectives. So it's not for everyone, right? Like there's going to be people that just care about like the cast. Like obviously people like Captain Flowers are going to be just phenomenal casters, right? So like if you want the hype, if you want that perspective, you still have the LCS stream for that. And then co-streaming is like if you want, you know, different takes on what's happening in the game. So like LS and I think have been doing like the most co-streaming. Right now. And, you know, I feel like a lot of people can just bounce back between all 3 streams if they want and just get different perspectives on like what's happening in the game. So I think it's really valuable. I think it helps a lot of the people watch LCS enjoy it more because sometimes they want to know like more about like what the teams could be thinking, like how drafts work. Like from people that worked inside teams, they want to hear more of that perspective because a lot of the casters for NA at least haven't actually been closely tied with teams for a long time.
Yeah.
So I just think that it's good overall for LCS, and then also it gives everyone something to look forward to. I mean, next week it'll probably be only my co-stream because IMLS just has no idea what 2-factor authentication is. But you know, I think in general it should be a good thing.
Yeah. Dude, oh my god, I'm so jealous. I wish I could co-stream. So there was like a crossroad where I was in both LPP and media, and I was asked to pick one. And I picked media. I mean, I should have stayed with LPP, and it's impossibly hard to get back into LPP. So yeah, every time I watch you guys co-stream, I'm so jealous of it. And because LCS is one size fits all, right? Like it doesn't matter if you're a noob, it doesn't matter if you're an expert. You just watch the casters do kind of everyone just listen to us. Like it's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be like very general. So I love like you giving your own perspective, LS giving his own perspective. And I'm sure like other streamers, like maybe there's someone doing a really noob friendly stream. So I love the different kind of viewpoints and different kind of niche and audience that co-streaming can cover.
Yeah, and I think one of the big things, especially for former pros, is that once they move on, once they retire, they're out of the space. A lot of the time, people want to hear some of those backstories, and seeing certain matchups or seeing certain situations in draft or seeing certain situations in the game, it reminds them of a time, of a opportunity to tell a story that otherwise players and fans don't normally get to see of this retired pro. So I think it leads to some great insight and some great content rather than just coming off right off the cuff.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think that just like, I guess to kind of go a little bit deeper into my point before, I've heard at least from the community that like there's different things that people enjoy about it. So from LS's stream, he like likes to talk about things like kind of like more in like a perfect world, like what is like the most optimal play at every time. No, I'm serious, right? And I think that this is like something that a lot of people want to know. They're just like, okay, so what is your perception of like perfect play? And how do they achieve that? Or like what should these teams be drafting? How should these teams be like pursuing that goal, right? And then from what I've heard people say is like my stream is more kind of like within the context of LCS, like with the understanding of like players' limitations within the LCS. I try to give like my take on that, and then the fucking LCS broadcast would be more about, hey, everyone's fucking like great for the most part. These are some amazing players, and let's see some amazing games. Like it's more like positive and more, I guess, noob friendly. So that's kind of how I'd like differentiate the three like streams right now.
Yeah, dude, the LCS broadcast is in a really weird state where I feel like our casters can only go that route just due to the game quality. So, I mean, let's lead into that, like, in terms of like the state of LCS and like how shit it's been.
Well, I mean, I think that the issue is like LCS has kind of been a top-heavy league for a while. Like it's always been like there's like 3 teams that look pretty good, or like 2 teams that look really good, and then everyone else looks like shit. But I think that LCS took like a big hit when TL obviously hasn't got their shit together. They had Broxah out for the first 3 weeks, so they're just behind all the other teams. So I feel like normally we wouldn't be having this type of conversation because you'd have TL looking really good and C9 looking really good, and maybe C9's a little bit better than TL, but they're both competitive. Where now you like, because there's no like really elite tier, it's just C9, and then like below that by like a couple degrees, I would say would be TSM right now. So there's only 2 teams right now that actually set up plays as a team, it feels like, and like make coordinated map movements, which is TSM and C9. And without TL being there, it just makes the league seem so much more shit, because it's like, oh, so now we have one team that's good, one team that's like okay, and then there's like the seeds of like 3 to 9. Everyone from like Immortals to Team Liquid is just this like coin flip status where all those games are really just going to be won and lost based off like seemingly random mistakes, and then you're just going to have CLG that just loses to everyone because they're terrible. So that's kind of like the breakdown of the league. So I feel like that's why it looks so much worse.
I agree with you with C9 being so good and rest of the league being bad. I was talking to 2 coaches yesterday, and we were talking about the level of LCS actually being lower on average across the board than last year. I know it's spring, and we definitely mentioned, hey, in spring, like people are figuring stuff out, and this year
is that including co-streaming?
No, level of LCS.
Oh, level of
LCS. Not the viewership.
Okay. I thought you said level of viewership. Okay.
Yeah, just a pure level of LCS is worse than 2019. I mean, I think it's getting worse year by year.
I think it's really hard to say. I'd say that C9 looks better to me than TL looked at this point in last year.
Yeah,
like TL did not look super dominant. Like C9 actually looks legitimate as a team right now. So I don't think that I would agree with that. Maybe the overall level could be considered lower, but I definitely think that like the shit tier teams from last year, like when you think about how bad 100 Thieves was in spring, how bad Clutch was in spring, those teams potentially looked worse than even
CLG. I mean,
even CLG or TL or EG, these teams that are at the bottom right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think a big thing to also note is that Cloud9 is so good. They are beauty in motion. Whenever they execute something, you understand what they're doing, how they're doing. And even yesterday, how close a couple of those ganks were for Evil Geniuses, and they weren't able to execute because of like just like one auto attack or one spell very early on, and how quickly that snowballed out of control. All of that just goes to say how great Cloud9 is, and it pushes everyone down. But it does create this conversation of like, hey, look over at the LEC. You've got 7 teams or 6 teams all within one game from each other. You're either 6-2, 5-3, and it's more than half the league, whereas it's very fragmented here with us. LCK is the same way as LEC. Everyone's within one game of each other so far. They are a little bit further behind the schedule because of the coronavirus stuff, but it has led to maybe showing the rest of NA, hey, look, this is what it needs to look like, because it's not like, hey, look, Cloud9 are eking out these wins. They are absolutely shitting on every other team. And so I think, you know, you have to look at Cloud9 than everybody else. And is this good for the league? Is it good that Cloud9 looks like they can be this world's stage
Oh,
contender.
definitely. Because what's the alternative? Then we just have no good team, and then all of our teams are just like garbage. Like I feel like the other side of it is definitely negative. And then also like when it comes to LEC, part of the reason why it's like that is because there's like two teams that are just free win teams, whereas like in NA we just have C9 as the free win team, but in EU you have Vitality and I mean, obviously, up until this last win against G2, which was fucking random, Schalke, right? So Vitality and Schalke, like everyone's beating. So that's just going to naturally like make the standings much more close because you have two teams that everyone's picking up wins against. So you have like 5-3-6-4, like, or 5-3-6-2, like teams like that. And then also SK has been pretty like from my perspective has been below the level of the top 7 teams in EU. So like the 8 through 10 in EU is so far down that it kind of props everyone else a little bit.
One other thing to add about C9, I love C9 as our leader, way more so than Team Liquid. I think the way Team Liquid plays is bad internationally and bad for other people to try to pick up. It's very passive, it's very conservative, and it doesn't push us to get better. It just pushes us to be way more calculated, way more slow. And I think that's how NA gets fucked every single time. The way C9 plays is fast, it's multi-dimensional, it's dynamic, and I think we need teams to copy C9. We don't need teams to copy 2019 TL.
Yeah, and also it's just kind of like the playstyle that C9 plays is facilitated by the strengths of the players, right? Like when you looked at TL, they were kind of just smarter than every other team. Like they had better macro. They wouldn't like dominate every other team in early game. Like every now and then they'd bot lane snowball, right? They would gank bot and then Double would carry the game from there. But in general, it wasn't a bunch about like top lane solo kills, like mid lane solo kills, things like that. It was more consistent play and then just outplaying teams when it comes to like the macro portion of the game. But the thing about C9 is like C9 actually has top players in every position, whereas like even when Impact is considered the best top laner in NA, like even when that was like a thing last year, he's not the same player as Licorice, right? Like he's not as mechanically dominant. He doesn't play the same type of champions. Xmithie and Xmithie last year was like a serviceable, consistent jungler who was always in the right place at the right time, but he would never like play to like go for like early like 1v1s on the enemy jungler or like shit on the enemy jungler directly. So C9 just in general has more mechanically talented players like overall than TL did last year. So they're able to play more aggressively. And I feel like that's kind of something that G2 showed the world, or at least showed the West last year was, hey man, like it really doesn't like this whole like synergy bullshit. That shit is overrated. Like we just want to have like the best players in every position and we'll go from there. Like if we're just better than you, like it doesn't fucking matter like how smart you guys are.
Yeah. We'll get to Cloud9 here there, Tiger. Slow it down just a little bit. Let's reel it back into the LCS and close it up so we can move on to the next topic here. I think the other thing that has happened over the last little bit is the amount of content that's being put out right now by Riot themselves. If you take a look at the screen here, over on LoL Esports, they fixed their website, and you can see they got Teamfight Breakdown, Dash has the Q, his long podcast, this or that is still around, Jat with his JLXP and putting out episodes over and over again, Freak has the Freak Show that comes out and kind of covers the patches and a little bit of meta stuff, you've had the Dive that's been out for a while, so there's also been a lot of content being built around the LCS. Do you feel like it now is starting to feed what should be around a top league, Loco?
I mean, it's starting to, right? And also, not just Riot content. There's stuff like Facecheck. There was Listen Loco, and there are other things that people are doing. Yeah, Crackdown that is around LCS that I think is so important, and it makes people think and talk about LCS every single day. Imagine there aren't shows like this. Like people aren't talking about LCS on Tuesday. They aren't talking about it on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Like it's so important that it is like a lifestyle. And I think this is a huge part of that shoulder content. And there being creators like us and making stuff like this.
Yeah, I think it's also just it gives people like more to choose from, because before when there was like less content produced, it felt like most people would just kind of piggyback onto like what one person said. It's like, oh shit, well like Summoning Insight is the only league talk show right now, so whatever they say, like I'm gonna agree with. Now you have like a lot of the fans aren't going to be as educated as people that have dedicated their lives to this game. But now with more content being produced and all these different takes on LCS, I feel like it gives a lot of fans like a better way to form their opinion. They can hear like multiple different sides, like how people view the game, and they can kind of just see what like makes most sense for them. So I think that as a fan, like it's probably like a really exciting time to, follow the LCS, because you have so much to choose from, and there's always stuff that you can like pick out. Like if you don't like our whole show, you can maybe like a segment of our show, maybe like one of the Joshua Leesman experiences that he puts out like one segment of that, and you can just kind of pick and choose like what you want from each show and form a better opinion overall.
Yeah, so for football, the XFL just came out. It's made by the guy that created wrestling, Vince McMahon, or he didn't create wrestling, but WWE. And I was so surprised that there's so much content around the league. They're like CBS is covering it, ESPN's covering it, Fox is covering it. All these sports channels that I just normally get my sports news from are covering this league, and that's kind of what is happening now around the LCS, where it's like, hey, look, now that it's being covered, it's kind of feeling like it's being accepted by the mainstream. It's being accepted by a lot of people, so you want to be in the know in that stuff as well. So the fact that the LCS is getting to this spot, I think, is huge. The last thing I wanted to touch on before we move on, I had a buddy used to work at Riot, high up there, came out this weekend, and I was like, hey, I got to go to the tailgate. And he's like, whoa, there's LCS tailgates? When did this happen? We've been talking about this forever. And I was like, yeah, it's the second one. The fan experience now is starting to change a little bit around the LCS to make it more accessible, more exciting to come out. The way that they're selling seats over at the stadium is different. You no longer get like a day ticket. You get like a match ticket. And that match ticket now only allows you to sit there for that match. And they really want people to come out. How do you feel like that changes things up now for fans and their fan experience?
Dude, when you go to LCS as a fan, especially when you fly out, it was not that great, honestly. Like you go, like you line up, you get to watch the games. You get to watch one game from your favorite team, and then they might be too fucking tilted to do the the fan meet.
No, we have no experience in that, Loco. Who would not be tilted to go out and shake hands?
We never missed the fan meet. I don't know how it was on fucking Golden Guardians, but I remember when I was with TL, like every single time they're like it was always, we'd go backstage, if we lost the game, we would be talking about the game, and they'd be like, all right, we'll talk about this later. Like, go out, you got to do the fan meet. So
I'm not gonna mention who, but I was told if I go out and do the fan meet, I might strangle someone. So if you want me to strangle someone, then I'll go do the fan meet. But if you don't want that, then you shouldn't send me out to the fan meet.
To clarify, Dom, I think you guys are cut from a different cloth. So I think the old guard always did it. High always did it. High was a consummate professional. I just want to clarify, so I cover High.
Yeah. But there was a player that told me that.
I don't know who you're talking about, Loco. That could be from TSM or Team Liquid beforehand.
What's the rest of the story? Did he strangle someone? Did you make him do it? Like, what happened?
No, we didn't make him do it. We
back down? Holy shit. I would call him out. That sounds like a bluff to me. I don't believe you have it. You're a fucking league player. You don't have it in you to fucking strangle
someone. No way, dude. How would you do that? You just say you just got slapped by like Team 8.
No, I'll tell you guys who it was after the show. I was pretty sure like something actually would have happened, and it was the right call to make sure he doesn't go and do it.
All right.
But anyways, yeah, as a fan, you fly there. You might get to watch your pro. You might not get to watch your pro afterwards, and then you just go home. Like you get to visit LA and stuff, but I thought the LCS experience was very bland and it was very short. And then now, like, you fly out, there's like a tailgate, like you go chill at the tailgate, and people actually like stay after the game to talk for like a long period of time, and you get to meet a bunch of other pros. So I think the experience has been so much better than what it used to be.
That's a little bit because you're you, dude. Like people are gonna come talk to you.
Not me. No, not me. Like outside, like people are just like out there.
Oh, in general, other fans. Yeah. I will definitely say the first time I went to LCS, it feels like you're making a trip to the Mecca where people don't like your everyday life. People don't understand what this means to you. If you're going to the LCS, it's because you're a fan. And it feels like you're coming home to the home of competitive video game and competitive league. And then you go inside and it didn't feel like it was special. And I think Riot has done a better job of trying to cultivate that experience. The fan shop isn't there anymore because it's expensive to run, and they turned it into a PC cafe now. And then, as you said, the teams are now getting involved in creating that culture with being outside, being at the tailgate, and creating something to do outside, which brings people around so that you can start talking and bonding. So I think
are the bottles of water still like $8 or do they lower?
I never paid for a bottle of water at LCS, so I don't know.
I don't know.
I did once, but I just wanted to like, you know, like I'll pay it, but I'm gonna flame you for it later. Like that's
Those
just
are
my trade-off.
club prices. $8 for a bottle of water.
$8 for a bottle of water. I'm like, wait, there's literally a Ralph's across the street where I can get like 50 of these for $5.
For our listeners that don't know, Ralph's is a grocery store chain, and the last couple times I was there, I've been there I think 2 or 3 times so far. The lines have always been long, so they're still paying $8 for that water.
Yeah, I guess worth. Supply and demand.
So that's kind of what the Facecheck guys' thoughts on LCS so far, both from a competitive standpoint, from viewership, and from a fandom experience. A lot of growth from what we've seen before, and it's trending upwards. And we'll leave it at that. All right, next up, let's get into the nitty-gritty for all you solo queue challengers. Patch 10.3 has hit the professional scene. We got to see our first taste of it here, and there were a lot of changes, and the biggest one I think we should really hit on and start off of were the jungle changes. You heard Dom and any other jungler complain about how the game was unplayable. Junglers were down like 3 levels. It was like level 10 to level 7.
It was like 5 levels, bro. We got some screenshots out of LEC. It was actually like level 10 jugglers, level 15 solo laners. It was fucking ridiculous before.
Yeah, so we have our biggest changes so far that are going to affect competitive. Let's start off with the jungle. Dom, Loco, either one of you could take it off here.
Definitely Dom.
Okay, so jungle changes actually didn't seem to like be abused that much in NA, but essentially they funneled a lot more experience into like Krugs and Wraiths. So Krugs and Raptors for people that aren't, you know, from season 1 like me, but Wraiths and Golems just have way more experience on them, which means that champions like Olaf, and then the other champion that wasn't picked in NA that I want to start seeing getting picked is Karthus, because they played it they were playing it on 10.2 in Korea. They played it in LEC. A couple of people pulled it out. Xerxes played it in EU this week. That champion is really good right now. Essentially, it just means that champions that can full clear the jungle will just be able to like actually level closer to the solo lanes than before. So it gives you kind of an option that wasn't there before. Like as a jungler before, it kind of felt like you needed to do like 3 camps and then try to get on the map and gank, because there's no chance you can ever farm yourself into the game. But now you have like another playstyle. So there's a couple like things that we kind of saw from this. Like Grig played Olaf. They played the Olaf Straka comp, which I mean Olaf just gets an indirect buff anytime they buff experience because he clears the jungle the fastest. Yeah, and like I feel like just in general, it opens up like another type of playstyle. Also, Sejuani got buffed as a champion. It got small buffs, but then also in this type of meta, Sejuani has more value. So it should just be pretty interesting to see how teams adapt. I feel like NA is always really slow to pick up like new champs and stuff like that when changes happen. But I think coming next week, after there's, you know, another week of LEC and people get to watch the games, they're gonna kind of have a different mindset about how they can play the jungle and like different comps that are now viable, especially like with Yuumi being good, right? So Yuumi is another champion that was changed, and how that relates to jungle is there's a bunch of comps that revolve around putting Yuumi on the jungler. Like if you have an Olaf that's super fed, you put a Yuumi on it, that champion can carry the game. So yeah, I mean, I think that in general, this is just like a good direction for League. It gives you more options, because before it kind of felt like every jungler would
hit level 3.
Yeah, hit level 3, try to gank, and then it just wouldn't work out because everyone's expecting level 3 ganks. And then they would just farm for the rest of the game and be like 0-1. Yeah, they'd just be worthless so early. So now there's like an extra position on the map, it feels like.
Yeah. Dude, a lot of the junglers nowadays, like the ones LS likes calling sinners, like Lee Sin and Elise, like for those champions to be viable, especially champions like Elise, you need to be able to get farm, and you need to be able to stay in level with other people on the map that you have kill pressure on the carries, or Elise is actually worthless late game. Like after she hits Cocoon, if she can't do enough damage to you, where as a carry you don't feel in danger, then like what are you even doing as the champion? So I really like the changes being made in the jungle to what Dom said, like make more things viable, because it really felt like junglers had a huge effect at level 3, and after that they just kept getting smaller and smaller and smaller until they were irrelevant.
Yeah, and it's just like, I guess to kind of like reiterate, I think the most crucial part of this, which is when only one playstyle becomes viable, kind of how it was before, where it's like everyone just has to gank super early, then it makes the game like way more boring as a spectator, because everyone is able to like play around that power spike. It's not like we're just sitting here like, all right, like jungler's level 3 and it's like some secret that's only amongst junglers. Like all the laners are like, shit, all I have to do is not die and then this motherfucker falls off hard as shit. So like they don't need to actually like play the game aggressively. But now there's actually, you know, people have to put some thought into like how they want to play lane phases, because you have the option of, hey, this jungler could be here, he could also not be here. So what are we going to do? And because of that, you see like a lot more ganks working.
Yeah, it created just that like meta game within the game of, hey, if I don't die early, then I don't have to do anything. By playing super passive, really it was almost like the first team that messed up got super punished, and that's really what Cloud9 was doing early on to a lot of teams. Imagine how many times people tried to come gank Niski in the mid lane, and Niski was there at the right spot, or they fucked it up, and then Niski was able to punish. Like, that's happened so many times, and then the jungler became irrelevant. I want to move us on to, you touched on it a little bit, Sejuani. Sejuani gets buffs, and we got to see a lot of Sejuani. We got to move into the classic Sejuani Trundle matchup in a couple of our games here. Why are we starting to see Sejuani over some of those other utility junglers or scaling junglers now that there's the XP game there?
So mainly Sejuani is just something that's always like it's always a very stable pick in pro play. You don't really have to play around it at all. Your lanes don't have to play differently, and then it synergizes well with like we didn't get to see this so much in NA. But it synergizes well with a lot of top laners. Like theoretically, Sejuani Aatrox should be able to like pressure things like Ornn, like things that are auto attacking or champions that have auto resets, which Aatrox kind of does in the E. I mean, the E is an auto reset, but normally you don't use it like that when you're playing it. But just in general, there's more options for playing like Camille, champions like this, because the stun is so potent. And obviously Sejuani is going to outscale things like Lee Sin come team fights. It's going to be way easier to play them, provides a front line, super tanky, etc. And then Trundle is coming back, obviously, because that is the main counter to Sejuani. I mean, Sejuani's passive gives her a bunch of free defensive stats. Right. And now if you have all those free defensive stats, somebody can just pick Trundle into you and just steal them for himself. So this is where like the game becomes interesting, because then you get into like the other mind game. So it's like, okay, I pick Sejuani, he Trundle counter picks me. So now I'm not even taking Aftershock on Sejuani, I'm taking Hail of Blades Sejuani, which is what the tech normally is. That's like what people did in LCK.
And you take Fleet, right?
Yeah, some people took Fleet, but Fleet got nerfed, and the main like thing that people picked up as a counter was Hail of Blades. So I feel like, yeah, this is just the new like little meta that we have, because then there's less stats to steal.
Okay. Let's get to the next champ, Daniel.
All right, so the next champ would be Akali. So Akali getting nerfed pretty much into the ground in the form of solo queue. It went from like a 53 win percentage to like I think a 42 win percentage. It was 11% drop for Akali in solo queue. There's only a lot of the regions aren't on 10.3 yet. They're still on 10.2. I think the last major region to get it played and win, Rascal was able to play it over for LCK. Broken Blade was able to pick it up in NA this weekend on 10.3. They ended up losing. He looked okay, that was the Bjergsen Renekton game. But like just a massive tank here to Akali. How does this change Akali if she has played, one? And then two, how does this change the ban, the pick and ban strategy? Because now you no longer have to always use a ban on Akali, whether you're on a side that can play it or not.
I mean, Akali as a champion is so skill expression heavy. She has so much dashes, so much different combos she can do. And also the Shroud was broken in competitive play. Right. I'm not sure it's that useful in solo queue, but in competitive play, her W would zone people. Like, it was straight zone carries in team fight. And it would also buy time for her in like 2v2s or 3v3 situation. So I think actually the Shroud aspect is something where there's a lot of hidden power in competitive. And that's why she's always so picked highly. And I think they took the right approach with it. If they kept their balanced for solo queue, she was always going to be giga OP in pro play. So they had to do something like this or rework some of her skills, which they kind of did with the R. Your first R has to always target an enemy now. So I think this is the right direction. I'm sorry for Akali players. And for a fact, Riot had to think a lot about this because Akali is one of their most popular champion. And whenever they nerf a champion like this, it's gonna really do damage in terms of like how much money they're making if they have skins down the line too.
KDA, KDA Akali, man.
Yep.
She got both. She got KDA and true damage. She is like, wait, no, she didn't get KDA. Wait, she did get both. What am I saying? Yeah. So
yeah, I mean, I think the thing about Akali, the reason why the win percentage dropped so much is like you said, so the R1, meaning that the R1 has to target the enemy champion, just gives her a lot less survivability, because before it felt almost impossible to gank an Akali pre-6. Like, worst comes to worst, she E's backwards and then R's backwards and she's back at her turret like instantly, right? Like, she has so much mobility. Now it's not as easy to escape, because if you like use your E away, you don't have like you can't R to close distance. You have to R back in. So it kind of makes it like a champion where you want to like it's only playable if you play like aggressively with it and you have like people that are playing around your lane. But it still seems like it'll probably come back to some degree. I mean, Broken Blade played it, and if you saw like his lane versus Licorice, like he blew the flash 1-on-1. You can definitely see that there's still power in the champion. It's not like the champion is just completely unplayable and awful, but I just think it's not first pick, first ban. It's not flexible in every single matchup. It's just like more going to be like a counter pick. It's going to be in my mind something like a Camille, where it's like you only see it in specific matchups as a counter.
All right. So those are Akali changes here and how it's going to affect the pro play. Let's take a look at Senna. Senna was another one. It's taken over the LCS. It's a dog champ, according to our number 180 carry in the history of the LCS. And then he goes on and picks it multiple more times. Double lift, of course. Senna getting changes in terms of how many souls are dropped. And so I've had to pick up Senna in my own solo queue games. And, yeah. And so... one, you'll note that it's not as bad when you miss CS because the rate of how things drop was actually raised when you missed CS. So like you can still scale, and you still have the same thing if you're playing aggressive within lane, get your auto Q auto and get the scaling there. That's all good. How does this change pro play where you don't want to miss CS and they don't normally?
So one thing I realized about Senna is I actually thought about a lot about what Dom said, the Senna ult and it being really useful. You have to do it to get the full value of Senna, and this is where a lot of the NA teams fail at Senna, the part of using ult. But there's another thing that's really huge, the 8-minute Rift Herald swap. So most of the time people will swap around at 7 minutes 30, and there's only one team that I've seen from the West. I don't watch all LEC teams, but G2 is the only team that I thought was using Senna correctly during the swap. So what you need to do is, as 7 minute 30 is coming up, you push in the wave, and then you go buy pickaxe, and then you buy the Manamune parts or longsword or Doran blade, and then you come back to lane, and then you try to get control, push out, and then go to Herald. But people aren't doing that, and they don't take that early back, and they stay in lane the whole time, and then they get pushed out, and they're like, well, I guess Aphelios just gets priority on Senna, and we're always going to be late to Herald. There's like little things you need to do on Senna to account for like her uniqueness and kit. And I don't think NA teams are good at it. So that's why I don't think we see a lot of Senna in NA. And that's why players like Double Lift, who have been insanely good, that I don't think really put in the work towards figuring out these champions, can't get the full value of Senna.
Yeah, so I think it definitely nerfed it a lot as an AD because of the rate of souls, but it was a buff to it as support. And we don't see a lot of support Senna because the normal supports that are picked kind of just beat its ass. Like Leona, Nautilus, it just seems like every time they ult, the champion is just dead. But the one thing that I saw with teams that want to draft Yuumi is a lot of them ban Senna because Senna is a good like situational counter pick to Yuumi, because in lane, like Yuumi doesn't have much threat on you, and you can early buy an Executioner's Calling on a Senna, and then you just like end up getting to play like the lane free. Because normally when you see these teams play like Ezreal Yuumi lane, they don't really play towards it. It's kind of like you guys just survive down there and farm. Like Ezreal's taking TP a lot of the time. When Bang played it, he played Lucian, same type of concept where you just don't play towards the lane. So I think that now it's not as much of an AD. Like it's still, I guess, maybe playable. I haven't seen too much of it. I don't even know if I've seen a game of AD Senna recently, but I think the value as a support, as a situational counter pick could be good. I can see it working into obviously Yuumi because it's a counter, but also maybe Tahm Kench. So if you see like
that's
Varus,
always
Tahm
been
Kench,
a good lane.
Yeah. So that's a pretty good lane for Senna as well. So I think that we're gonna see not many AD carry Senna picks, but you're gonna actually start seeing it as a support counter, which is what it like should be theoretically.
So there's a decent question, Loco, because I think it was cool the insight that you brought there for the Senna. Why early Dorans and why early longsword? Well, how does that help? I know the longsword builds into the locality.
You need to swap at 7:30. That's a really big one, right, for the Herald. So what Senna needs to do is she needs to take the back a little bit early and come to the lane before that 7 minute 30 mark happens, because she needs to be as strong as possible so she can start pushing. Like she needs to buy pickaxe and whatever items she can, she needs that power spike to be able to fight against players. Because if she stays in lane the whole time versus Aphelios versus Misfortune, you're always getting pushed in. So Senna kind of has to cheat the timing and take an early recall and come back and try to be like, okay, I have all these items, I'm going to try to push you out. So it's just a little like weird thing about Senna that you need to learn to be able to play for the 7 minute 30 swap.
Yeah, I feel like we saw a lot less of the 7-minute 30 swap as well in LCS's split, like, or in this week rather. It seems like less teams are doing it. More people are kind of just like, if we already have control, they played it more like, because essentially to do the 7-minute swap or the 8-minute swap for Rift Herald, one of the bot lanes, if the bot lane is like actually like being contested heavily, one of the bot lanes kind of needs to take a bad recall. So we've seen more teams just be like, okay, fuck getting like the Herald super early. Like if we're ahead, we'll just have our jungler solo it. If not, we're just gonna like pressure the lane and try to take turret. So like there's other ways you can play it. I think one of the ways the G2 played it in one of their early games was they just like sent 4 people to the top side, so they didn't bring the Senna and they just used the Senna ults to like count as pressure. So they would run TP on the Senna because like a lot of the lanes you just don't need a second summoner with Senna. So they would run TP on the Senna and they would just have her walk bot with ulti pressure and kind of like bait the other team into like, oh, are you guys gonna try to like 5v4? Start the Herald or like take the Herald in our face because we have Senna ulti, we have Senna TP, like we can potentially be there to contest it. So I think that now like the 8-minute swap kind of like caught people off guard, but now that people have figured it out, they've started to develop like some level of counterplay, which I think is a lot of like taking teleport on your AD carry so he can stay bot but also potentially teleport top if it like becomes a fight. So we saw this from I think when Turtle took it, he played cleanse. When Bang played Lucian, he took TP, I'm pretty sure. And then like the Ezreals that are being played are taking TP. Like those types of things are good for like a situational counter to it. And then also just in general, when you have lanes like Ezreal Yuumi, these lanes are much better about like poking you out bot lane and not letting you get off this free recall. Like when people were playing Senna versus Aphelios every game, where like neither of them were really like pressuring. Maybe Aphelios could control the wave better, but Senna could like potentially sustain harder. Like those lanes, I felt like it was a lot easier to do it. Now it's like less easy to do it because of like the summoners people are taking, and then also like the champions that are being used.
Yeah, and speaking of Yuumi, that's our last champ that we wanted to highlight here for 10.3. Got to see a lot of Yuumi here. I think on the broadcast they highlighted in one of the games, Yuumi did like 40,000 amounts of HP healing in one of the games. It was something ridiculous like that.
It was the FlyQuest game.
It was the FlyQuest game. Yep. And then in the interview, they said there's just a priority on healing right now in the meta, and so we're seeing a lot more Yuumi here. I
mean, just look at these numbers though. Like, look at these numbers. The champion was already being played in LCK on 10.2, right? Like, there was that famous Olaf Yuumi Soraka game where the Olaf, they literally just put all the healing on the Olaf. Olaf presses W, just runs at your face, and there's nothing you can do. We saw that in LCK. And then this is a buff to literally every part of Yuumi. It heals for more. The Q does more damage. It's like, okay, well now the champion's just going to be OP. Like when Riot does buffs like this, it really just makes me question, like, is it just because Yumi's a new champion and they want to just force it into the meta? Like, why do they need to?
Oh, is it me or did Dom lag?
That was.
We'll just wait. He usually connects back in 3 seconds. Or actually, you back, Dom?
Yeah, he's back.
I think so.
Go ahead.
Okay. So, yeah, Dom, finish your point regarding Yuumi.
I don't know where I got cut off, but essentially my point was just like they buffed every single part of the champion. Like the champion's 2 strengths were poke and healing, and normally it was kind of the type of thing where it's like, okay, if we're gonna take away some of the healing, we'll give him more poke. Like they normally try to push the champion in one direction. When you buff both parts of like what the champion's good at, it's just gonna end up being OP. So now, I mean, you're just seeing Yuumi like be super high priority. Like teams are just first picking it. Like when EG played it, they just first pick it. FlyQuest like picks it, and they're not even playing it. Like before, it was kind of like, well, if you want to play Yuumi, you need to play it with Ezreal because he's the only AD carry that can save
Ezreal,
it.
Lucian, or Sivir.
Yeah, and now people are just like, okay, well, we're just gonna fucking play with MF with cleanse and a Yuumi. It's good enough, you know. So, just in general, I think it's really bad. Also, the FlyQuest game, the healing was kind of way more than it should have been because Kabi just didn't buy Executioner's Calling at any point during the game, which is really weird. Like normally when you're playing against Yuumi, you need anti-healing, but they just didn't have it. So, I mean, I guess 40k healing is what happens if that champion is just allowed to do whatever it wants.
Dude, the thing about Yuumi that I like that you mentioned was the melee carry enabler. Like Yuumi does not work with range champions that well. Think about her skills, like her R. If you're doing it from a range, it's actually such a shitty skill. And the Zumi, it's like giving you heal, giving you movement speed. Yes, it helps you kite, but it's so much better to have it on like an actual melee carry. And people really need to think about that when they draft, because when we looked at the FlyQuest draft, I think it was Ornn plus Jarvan for their top and jungle. And
no, it was Ornn and Lee Sin, I think.
Oh yeah, Ornn Lee, my bad. And those two can't really use Yuumi. So a lot of times she's on top of Lee, and then she's starting with ultimate, and I thought it was so suboptimal. So I would love to see teams pair Yuumi with stuff like Jarvan that can go in really easily, that can use all the buffs really well. And yeah, just something to really think about with Yuumi. And that's why Yuumi Garen was so popular last year. It's strong in lane, but it also allows you to do something mid-game because they work well together.
Yeah, and like the reason why Olaf is so strong with it is because normally like the counterplay to Yuumi is because the champion is inside one champion, you just need to CC and stun like that one champion. You try to burst her down before she can infinitely heal, etc. So yeah, I mean now the issue is that when people run Olaf with it, like Olaf can't be CC'd. So if you pair enough stuff with a champion like that, also Olaf has just natural synergy because movement speed obviously is super good on a champion like Olaf, like to be able to close distance, and then like he can never be CC'd, and then also his W makes healing from all sources like increased, so you get more out of that. I feel like you're just gonna see like more Yuumi priority, especially in NA, because champions like this, they require a lot of coordination to beat. And NA is normally just weak, so things like weak when it comes to coordination. Which is why Sona Taric was so good here. Sona Tahm was so good here. This is just gonna be this season's version of like Sona Taric. It's gonna be Ezreal Yuumi like all the time, and teams are gonna have to just probably ban it out or just play very specific comps into it.
All right, cool. Let's get to the next champion.
That was it. That was all we had. So I was about to close it off there. So that's Yuumi. Those are our big changes from 10.3 that we felt like would be hitting the rift and changing everything up from a competitive standpoint. Now, let's get ourselves into our teams. So we have our... We're at week 4. We're about at the crossroads of the season, slightly before. And one of the teams that we thought would be on top find themselves looking up at almost everybody except Counter Logic Gaming because they're CLG. And that would be Team Liquid. Team Liquid now coming together as Broxah triumphantly defeats Donald Trump and gets himself into the TL training facility legally. And it really galvanized the org. Steve put out a tweet, everybody stop what they're doing to cheer Broxah. Broxah in his post-game interview said he was so damn tired, but then still went straight into practice. And it definitely showed against Immortals because Xmithy shit all over Broxah. Welcome to the league, guy. Welcome to having my old spot. You see how shady your teammates are. This is your mess to clean up. And Immortals took Team Liquid to the shed.
I knew there would be unfair expectations on Broxah. It's Broxah, TL's been doing bad. They're like, oh, Broxah's going to come in and save everything. And then Dodo even said in the interview after the pick and ban, he's like, yeah, Broxah just came in and he's like, just draft me Lee, dude. We'll win for sure. And then he picked Lee and then he inted into the Sejuani at level 3.
And he didn't get a crab for the rest of the game. Rest in peace.
I'm like, okay, that was an anticlimax. So my big complaint is TL ran Kalista Taric. They just ran another teamfight comp, and they had Ryze Lee mid, but because Lee fucked up early, they couldn't really do much with it. I think Jensen and Core JJ have been the 2 best players on Team Liquid. Why not play around the mid 3v3 like you did with Fnatic the whole time? Like Jensen and Broxah, they boot camps back in Europe, and Jensen's been so good. Like, why not play around Jensen? Why are we doubling down on this identity of we have to play through bot lane? I was so confused to see TL's game plan versus Immortals.
I mean, I think the game plan makes sense because when you draft Taric Kalista, that should be a lane that has prio, right? Like,
but you cannot draft it. I mean, you can draft something different.
Yeah, but they did have prio. It just comes down to coordination. It's like prio doesn't necessarily mean that like you can just do whatever the fuck you want as a jungler, right? Like somebody could not have prio but just leave the lane. So you have to be more present minded with how the game is going. Also, I think his pathing that game was really bad from Broxah because he did blue, Gromp, Wolves, and then invaded. Where I feel like if you're going for that invade, like if you're trying to like make a fight over their blue, what is the point of doing Wolves, right? Why wouldn't you just go blue, Gromp, red? So at least you have the red when you're invading.
So also, when you die, you don't give up double buffs and you only give up 1 buff.
Yeah, I guess I don't know. I just thought it was so fucking weird, like how slow Broxah's reactions were when he got jumped on by Xmithy, because there was like definitely an option to ward jump there because he got queued by Sejuani, right? And after Sejuani QWs, he then saw like the hook coming at him, and like I feel like you should be able to just ward jump away from that, and they should at least have to commit like flashes or something to get you, or you should at least live. But it seemed like he was so like so surprised that they were even there at that
so
point.
jet lagged.
No, wait, no. let me speak on this. So I got flamed by LS and Benji about it because I tweeted about how it was Xmithy reading him well, but actually what happened when I watched from ProView was Xmithy had the ward there, and then he pulled the Gromp out of vision, and then it went back into vision. So Broxah literally saw it go into vision, see it die, and then still walked in. So Broxah just, I don't know what happened, but he full on smorked. He literally saw it die, and he's like, I'm still going to go in here. We're going to be equal level, and the Nautilus is going to be the one that's faster to come to it. So just Broxah being Broxah, I guess.
Well, I mean, it's just because like the coordinated play makes sense in theory, right? Like if you take a 3v3 in their jungle with your Kalista Taric that just pushed in lane, like you should just get a free blue buff there, right? I just don't think that in general these types of plays are as valuable as they were in previous seasons. I think a lot of teams are like overvaluing buffs right now. We're right now with like the camps responding so much faster. Like a camp gives, like for example, Gromp gives more value than an actual buff right now. So like if you do blue wolves red, you're not level 3. But if you do blue red Gromp, you're level 3. Or if you do blue wolves Gromp, you're level 3. So like people are prioritizing these buffs because in theory it's like so good to steal away the enemy's buffs. But with the changes to the jungle over the years, like if you have a Hunter's Talisman, you don't need mana anymore to actually like clear the jungle. You don't need the blue buff to be able to like kill the jungle normally. And then yeah, like the buff doesn't give you more experience than a camp. So wasting time invading buffs, like even if you get the buff, it's not that good of a trade. I think the teams that start understanding this earlier and are able to just like play around camps and experience and understand like how the game is now compared to how they might perceive the game to be like ideal, like, oh, this is how it should be played. Like if you 3-buff the enemy, it's really good. Well, it's not that good to 3-buff the enemy anymore. So like I think that the teams that are able to adapt this and the junglers that understand this and start playing for like, hey, we can trade like 3 buffs if it means that I'm getting like 2 topside camps or something for it. The teams that adapt that strategy, I feel like are just going to be way ahead of the other LCS teams right now.
Yeah, those kind of things are really important, and I'm not sure how many players think the same way that you do. A lot of times, players just play the game, and certain things about the game have been true for so long, and when these like XP changes get made, like they don't adapt a lot of times. So yeah, I'm interested to see if people are actually paying attention and making those adaptations.
Yeah, and we've seen it like time and time again. We've seen games where like a jungler just, I mean, I don't know if you guys remember the first game of the season from Golden Guardians and Meteos. Meteos was on Gragas, Closer was on Jarvan, and he took like 7 camps in Meteos' face, and you'd be like, damn, like in the other jungle, like this jungle would be level 7, the other jungle would be level 4. The problem is they upped the camp respawn times, and then they lowered and then they increased the experience that you gain from Krugs and Gromp. So because they like they redistributed the experience throughout the jungle, counter jungling a jungler really doesn't do that much anymore because he's always going to have something to farm. Like there's always going to be a camp coming up. So it's really just about like understanding like, hey, like we can take his camps as long as we're not losing something for it. Like sacrificing to try to put the enemy jungler behind is almost like never worth it at this point, in my opinion.
So going back to more about TL versus Immortals, I think TL's game plan for this was actually pretty bad. So they're drafting a teamfight comp where Immortals ended up with the better teamfight comp. Immortals had Cassiopeia, was their AD, or the top side they also had Gangplank. So Immortals had a stronger backline. I think it was Cassio, Gangplank, Ezreal. Yeah, Ezreal, Sejuani, Nautilus. And then where TL has Kalista, Taric, Ryze, Lee Sin, and Ornn top side. So you are a teamfight comp, but the other team outscales you in terms of team fighting. So I just have no idea what TL's trying to do. And that's been like a big problem with TL. Their identity has always been teamfight, and it doesn't change beyond that, no matter like who they have. And their macro is so conservative. A lot of times where the fight is like 40-60, TL will refuse to take it, and they rather just scale. Well, it seems like, or go ahead.
To challenge that, though, isn't that why Broxah is coming in? Like, he is the aggressive ingredient, and a lot of the time will be the initiator of those, 40-60 type matchups or calls, and he'll be the one that does that. When Team Liquid get to that point of synergy and getting him in there, and he gets sleep and adjusted to NA schedule, right?
Hopefully that's what happens. But like the biggest thing I see from TL where I see this so much is when the enemy team has Herald and they're using it on a side lane, TL will never take the fight. TL will be on the other side, and they'll just slowly try to get the turret, and they lose multiple turret and they lose so much tempo over it. They're never ever willing to take a fight on bottom side of the map where they feel like it's not 100% favored. They're always waiting for when double is fed, when the fight is better for us. They're always trying to scale to that point.
Yeah, I don't even view Broxah as that type of player anymore. Like, I never considered, okay, so maybe in like 2018, 2017, he was like more super aggressive when he was younger in his career. 2019, it felt like he's more like a facilitator. Like, the way that I kind of see him functioning with TL is he's supposed to be like Xmithy in terms of like understanding how to play around lanes and all that stuff. Like, that's going to be more of his mindset, but he's supposed to just have better mechanics. So that's like where they're supposed to like actually thrive, is like, hey man, we have like another jungler that's really smart, that understands which lanes to play around, where to be on the map, etc. And this guy can actually just play more like a better Lee Sin, a better Elise, like that type of style of champion. So if they're trying to make him be like the aggressive person that just counters the team, like, he's not going to be that. I don't view him as that type of player.
He's not a closer. So, he's not a Dardoch. He's a better Smithy. That's how you think.
I mean, like, if you remember, like, EU in LEC last year, it never was like when Fnatic played against G2. It was never like, oh shit, like Broxah is just fucking so aggressive compared to Jankos. Like, Jankos is definitely a more aggressive player. When you look in Europe, there's so many junglers I would consider more aggressive. Selfmade was a more aggressive player than him. Inspired is a more aggressive player than him. He was like more of the Smithy of EU. But since Europeans are just better than North Americans at this game, it should just be an upgrade because of his mechanics being higher.
Yeah, and he's also being Xmithy for Caps, not Xmithy for Jensen. So that's a big difference too. All right. Yo, Daniel, did you get to catch the TL versus CLG game?
TL versus CLG game? I don't think so. I don't think I watched that one. Well, before we move to that, are we moving to that? Is that what you want to do?
Yeah, let's. I mean, do you have something else you want to bring up?
Yes. Before we move to that, I was in the smoothie bar for the backstage, the backstage place over at the
VIP.
LCS.
So cool.
I just said backstage. I didn't say VIP. You're the one that brought it there. We got to see the handshake here at the very end, and just look at Xmithy. Like, here's Sad Boy Broxah. Here's Doublelift checking his damage stats, making sure he did his job. But then look at this stone cold kill. We got to play it in slow motion here because the smoothie bar just broke out laughing. Look at his eyes when he shakes everyone. He's like, yeah, whatever. Looks straight at Peter and just stares right at him the whole time. Good game, dude. But you know what he's saying. Look at Jetson right here. Yeah, best mid, good game, dude. And then right there, he just like looks past him, and then he's done. He's done. He's like, yeah, come here, Impact, yeah. And then he's
he hugged. Oh, dude, Broxah went for the hug. Damn, I'm surprised. I didn't actually see this. Dude, it didn't look like he wanted to hug Broxah, to be honest.
Like, in the smoothie bar, people started laughing. Like, it was. Like, I played it in slow motion because it just looked so killer. And then now he's happy boy because he's hugging dad. But like, it was just so awesome to see that live and just feel that redemption arc, because throughout the LCS this season, there's been a lot of teams beating their former teams. Keith and Golden Glue taking down Team Liquid. There was one where Sven beaten C9, and then this one just felt like a completion of a lot of the ones that really needed to be done, and it was Xmithy Boom and Team Liquid with their new jungler. Yes, he just got in. Yes, all of that stuff, but just that moment, I was like, that's awesome, and I hope it really leads to some more drama in the future. All right, so that was my point on the CLG, on the Team Liquid Immortals game. Yeah. Let's move on to that CLG TL beatdown, and we finally got to see what Broxah was able to do. I couldn't remember the match off the top of my head. I watched it, I stayed at home, but I don't remember it. Guys, go ahead, take it away. It's
the game where TL, I think, didn't actually have the best draft. Their draft was Mordekaiser, Sejuani, Vladimir, Varus, Kench. Like, and you have triple AP topside, Mord, Seju, Vlad, and both Yasuo and Set, the enemy solo laners, can build Hex Drinker, and it's so good for them. I was so shocked to see how bad CLG was. I don't think TL played particularly well this game, but it just shows like, wow, CLG is so fucking bad. A team like TL that doesn't really have their shit together, a team like TL that actually loses to Golden Guardians, can just stomp CLG and look like they're on form.
And CLG has the easier team comp to execute with around the Yasuo and 1, 2, 3, 4 knockups. There's 4 knockups and you're playing around Crown.
Sure, but Crown, like, I feel like this is such a bad look for CLG, right? Like, if we've looked at CLG this season, you take off nameplates, right? Fuck the nameplates.
They look like
just think about them as like individual, like how they've played, like mid laner, top laner, etc. Their mid laner and their top laner are the weakest parts of their team right now, right? And their jungler was bad, but this has been Wiggly's best week, right? Like he did well in the game versus Closer. Like he was putting out a lot of pressure on the map. He was there to gank lanes, etc. Both your solo laners are bad right now. So you should be playing serviceable solo laners and be playing around your bot side because maybe Stixay and Smoothie can carry the games. So like having this whole Yasuo Gragas comp, it's like, dude, Crown has not been looking good this season. He's looked bad mechanically even this season. Like there was a play that I was showing. I was actually just hanging out with Jensen and Broken Play last night. I was showing a play. I was like, Flex. What do you think about this? And this was I'm gonna explain it to the chat because you probably remember there was a play when he played against Immortals on Monday Night League last week. So week 3 Monday Night League, where he was playing Rumble into Cassio, right? And the Cassio is literally 1 HP. Not Rumble to Cassio, Rumble to Azir. Sorry, but he's playing Rumble to Azir. He gets a trade, burns the Azir's flash, and the Azir is 1 HP, no flash, and it's easily flash autoable by.
Oh, the Rumble one, right? Yeah.
You remember that play?
Yep.
And that flash. Where he doesn't flash, you get the kill, and that to me was so indicative of his mindset when he's playing LCS right now. Like he's not trying to like go for every play and carry the game. He's trying to be like serviceable, solid, like get small advantages and just play with the team. Where it's like, dude, no one wants you here for that. Like we want to see the Crown that played for Optic last split that was carrying the fucking games. Like Optic did not win a game that Meteos and Crown did not carry, right? So this is what we want to see out of you. We want to see you like beast it up, go for these kills. If you're not playing like that, don't draft fucking Yasuo because Yasuo is a champion that needs to get an aggressive advantage over people. Like if you're playing Yasuo Gragas, you need to be able to do something in the early game. You need to set up some team fights in order to like actually be able to win because you're just playing like a melee champion, bro. Like a melee champion later on is not going to be that good if you're not ahead. So if you're not playing with this mindset, fuck the Yasuo, fuck all this shit. Rumble is fine because it doesn't really function as a melee champion. Give him the Cassiopeia, give him the Ornn mid, some shit like that, and let your ball in carry you.
The thing about Crown that's so hilarious, like you said, in 2019, he carried the shit out of Optic along with Meteos. So going into 2020, there were so many teams that wanted Crown. And when you talk to the GMs or when you talk to the coaching staff, they're just so happy that they didn't end up with Crown. There was like 3 or 4 teams like seriously bidding for Crown and that were basing their roster and like moving players around and even moving staff around to make sure they can land Crown. And CLG got him. And yeah, CLG boomed, and the teams that didn't get him are actually doing really well and got cheaper myths that are doing better than Crown. To speak more to Dom's point, other than Ryoma, I don't think there's a mid laner that I can confidently say Crown is playing better than.
I think Ica has been playing really bad. Like he kind of like, I mean, the thing about Ica is he just never does anything, right? It's like Smithy either carries the game or doesn't, and like Soaz always plays consistent, and Altec's been playing consistent. That's kind of how their team works. But as a mid laner, like the reason why I have no faith in Immortals as a team is because I don't think that a team that has like no mid lane threat can ever be good. Like if I had to guess right now, it sounds ridiculous to say. I'd say that it's pretty likely that we don't even see Immortals make playoffs. Like I think that their record being 5-3 is not indicative of their skill. Like
okay, we have a section for that. We literally have a section on the show for that.
Yeah, sure. But my whole point in regards to Ica is like this is the reason why I'm not confident in them because like. Dude, they lost to EG this week, right? If you look at the overall games they played, they're 5-3, right? 2 of those games are the one where CLG just opened mid and just lost the game for free, right? Like that was one of the games. The other one was the 70-minute game versus TSM, where there's no world, even if their record is better, that I actually believe that right now they're a better team than TSM. So I can easily see the playoffs being C9, TSM, TL, Dignitas, FlyQuest, and EG. Like I could see a world where that ends up being the playoff team and Immortals just isn't able to win because eventually teams are going to figure out like, hey, we can draft whatever against this guy. This guy is never going to pressure lane. So unless he steps up in a big way, that's a big weakness for their team.
Going back to
we'll get to Immortals later. That's what I was saying. Go ahead, Loco.
And going back to the whole TL talk, like the player I do really want to dive into more is Broxah. We talked about it a little bit where if he's going to be an enabler, then they're just like repeating what they did for 2019. They just have better Xmithie, and I'm not sure that's what they really wanted to end up with. I think for Broxah to flourish in NA and not be another Xmithie, because I don't think he's as good as Xmithy at being Xmithy. Like being a glue piece, making sure people aren't getting dove, playing around Peter while still farming. Like Xmithy was so good at catering to everybody on the map while still getting his job done. Because I see Impact get dove a lot more now. I'm sure that has a lot to do with Impact's own individual level of play, but it also has to do with how much information the jungler is feeding you and how the jungler is pathing depending on, oh, my top laner can get dove here. I need to pass differently to make sure I can cover. So yeah, like Broxah has to play towards his strengths, and I'm not sure if TL will actually let him.
I mean, I think that his strengths are just not what people think his strengths are. Like, people are saying, oh, well, he's not as good at being Xmithy as Xmithy. Well, I mean, he was pretty much Fnatic's Xmithy. That's how I viewed him when he played last year. Like, the aggression from Fnatic did not come from Bwipo. Last year, the aggression from Fnatic comes from Bwipo, or sorry, it did not come from Broxah. It comes from Bwipo and it comes from Hylissang. That's how that team functions. So I don't think that I hope that the teams that scouted him, like when TL scouted him, they understood what type of player they're getting, and they just think that this is like their formula to win, and they're doubling down on having strong bot lane, smart jungler, with slightly better mechanics.
Smart? I thought the whole thing with Broxah is he's given something to do pregame, and he executes on that, and he's not someone that's very flexible. I think that's where I saw the biggest difference between Broxah
that description sounds like Reignover then.
Reignover was smart. Reignover was incredibly smart. Like he adapted a lot.
His brain was breaking like post like 6 minutes if it didn't go according to draft on CLG in 2018.
That's the corpse of Reignover. Let's talk about Let's talk about Reignover Immortals. Like Reignover was really smart. But yeah, I mean that's the point I want to discuss with Dom. Wasn't that Brox's weakness? Like this guy can't adapt to new situations, to like things coming up, and to things going differently than what was expected.
I think that he can adapt. I just think that he's not going to be the one that's going to be like proactive in making the decision to adapt, you know? So like, I don't think like, I think that it's going to be really like reliant on TL to be like, hey, like we need you for this wave, etc. And I feel like Broxah is comfortable being like a dog like that in certain situations. Like in Fnatic, that's how it looked, you know? Like, it's like, hey, we need you here for this. And you see his pathing in some of these games, and he'd only have done 4 camps at 5 minutes into the game. Like I specifically remember games in finals, or maybe it was like the, you know, because they had like 2 finals in EU, they had to play each other and then play each other again the next week. But yeah, I remember games like this where it was just like, hey man, you're just giving up everything to just do what your laners want. So I feel like he should just be a dog, but like a younger, better dog. You know, it's like, all right, like this dog's getting old. They put it down, send it to the fucking death realm with Immortals, and now they have a new one that's like, you know, similar. They don't love it as much, but it's still like, you know, it still has its own benefits.
No way, dude. And then Xmithy comes back as a shadow dog and shits all over him.
Shadow dog unleashed. Dude, the whole thing was TL was complaining about Xmithy, Jensen don't have good 2v2 synergy. We need to make sure we have better mid-jungle synergy. That's one of the reasons why we failed at Worlds. With Broxah, we're going to have better mid and jungle synergy. They're both Danes. They're boot camping in Europe. That was their whole thing with Broxah, Dom. That's why they wanted to pick up Broxah. That's what they said publicly, at least.
Sure. They said that publicly, but I think that once they get into it, it's more just like, yeah, they want to have the option to 2v2 mid. Whereas before, it felt like if they take 2v2s with Xmithy Jensen, they're never winning it. Like now they just have a better jungler. I don't think that it's like, my whole point is I don't think that it's going to be Broxah being like the mastermind or the decision maker. I feel like they know how they want to play. The lanes are comfortable calling for jungle pressure. They just want somebody who's going to be better at executing it, because they feel like they already have all like the ducks in a row. Like they have their own team philosophy. They understand how they want to play the game. And then they just want to have somebody else that can fit into that better. Okay. So I don't really think that he's supposed to be like the person that's giving like a bunch of direction to the team. I think that he's just supposed to like fill in the gaps and just be like, you know, serviceable and reliable for the lanes.
I mean, if that's the case, they should have just really stayed with Xmithy.
Yeah.
Well, no, because they felt like they were capped with Xmithy. They're like, okay, well, we know how we want to play. Like we already have our team philosophy, we have our game plan, we have our style, etc. But this guy just isn't good enough to actually like win the fights that we want to take. So let's just get somebody. Like it doesn't matter at this point if we get a jungler that's slightly less smart. We're just gonna have him just be better. So like, I think that they just want a better mechanical player to fill into that.
But what has happened is that it's shown a lot of cracks within the team. You know, like they shouldn't be this bad. I think going into the season, you say, hey, you replace one of these players, you still got 4 insane players. It happens to be this time it's, or not this time. In reality, it's Xmithy that they ended up switching out. And one of the players I think that needs to at least be examined a little bit here, a little bit more because of how coin flippy is Doublelift. Exactly that, right? Talking about the Senna, hasn't looked great on it. Outside of the meta, tries to force in the Callista, not really working with Core JJ, and at what point do we look at Core JJ as well, like not being so far the best support in the whole league, one of the best players in the whole league, and being like, hey, look, maybe this is a two-way street, but let's start with Doublelift first.
Core JJ is rank 1. I know that doesn't like absolve him of all blame. Like you can still be bad competitively while being rank 1, but Core JJ is putting in the work. I don't think Core JJ like sticks out to me as like, oh, he's not playing meta champions. Oh, this guy isn't mechanically playing well. That's not. I really don't think it's a Core JJ problem.
I mean, I think the thing is, Doublelift is gonna get a small boost here because of what's happening to the game. So he was never like super good at the Senna, right? Like the Senna was obviously something he didn't pick up. He's been kind of slow on the uptake of these new champions because he just hasn't put in the games. If you look at Sven and compare him to Doublelift, and you're like, okay, so Sven played how many games when he was in Korea? He played like 160 games duo queue with Vulcan. He has double his games, and now Sven is actually rank 1 in NA. Like he's just put in more work this season. So I think that the uptake of new champions has been bad for Doublelift, but I feel like Doublelift can still play the other stuff better. So he's gonna get a small buff here because of like how the meta is shifting. Senna essentially like just got nerfed like out of the AD role where it's not a priority AD, and it increased the value of a bunch of the lanes that Doublelift is already good at, right? So Doublelift already understands how to play the Xayah Rakan lane really, really well. So that's going to help him look better. Tahm Kench Varus is something that he's played a lot of before. He played a lot of Varus last year as well, so he's practiced on the Varus. So that's another champion that's going to be good. So he's not going to have to be this like insane MF player, this insane like Senna player. It's not like he has to do all different things. Like you're going to be able to just draft. Like you can easily give up MF Leona and just play Varus Tahm Kench into it, or Braum Varus. Like there's a bunch of lanes you can play now. So I think that he's getting an indirect buff because of the meta shift. Just because like he's just more practiced on the champions that are coming back than he was on like the Senna, the Philios, etc.
One thing about Double though, it's how to say this while being polite, while also not feeling like a Doublelift hater. I think
you should just own the shit, dude.
Doublelift is a 4-time LC or whatever, like 6-time, 7-time LCS champion. He's the most accomplished LCS player in the history of LCS. And I think a lot of times that plays against him because it really does not feel like TL has aspirations for Worlds. It really does not feel like TL is a team where they're going into the season being like, hey, we want to 6P. Hey, we want to get out of groups. Hey, like we want to change history. Like we want to change what's been the norm for NA. I feel like C9 has been that team. I feel like C9 is putting in work towards that, where TL is just comfortable, where TL is like more lax, and I think it shows in the gameplay, and I think it shows with like how they've been handling the situation, like the Doublelift not picking up Senna, TL staying with their old playstyle. Like they had an active way to really shift into a different team. It's going to take a lot of work. It's going to take a lot of effort. It's going to take a lot of practice, and I think Doublelift is the core of that. When TL does well and when TL succeeds, Doublelift should be getting most of the praise. When TL doesn't do as well, I feel like Doublelift receives most of the blame. Like he said in interviews, like, I don't think Spring matters that much. And for the leader on your team, for the highest paid player on your team, for the most advertised player on your team to say that, sure, Dodo and King can say Doublelift doesn't speak for the entirety of TL, but Doublelift definitely is a huge voice on the team. So I think it's crazy like what's going on with TL, and there aren't more fingers pointed at Doublelift, and Doublelift isn't looking at the situation to be like, hey, a lot of this is on me, and there is responsibility as a leader for me to turn this around.
Yeah, but I think this is a product of the format itself. I think what he said is true, and I think you can't deny that, other than the fact that like you're going to have a couple of pundits and people come in and like shit on the fact that you guys are half-assing it. Like, could you have put in more time to play Senna? Sure, you probably could have, but like, why? You don't really have to turn it on until summer, and that is the product of the split. Whereas Cloud9, they're still chasing their first championship since 2014, I think. And so, like, although they've been to Worlds and have always, represented North America well, they've always tried to do it on their way, right? Through budget, through building their players. This is the first time where they've splashed out lots of cash for a team like Team Liquid did beforehand, and so yeah, there's more pressure to finally catch up, be the #1 in North America, and like the sense of urgency that you're talking about, on top of the fact that they went outside of their normal operating procedures to change. And I think that's why you're seeing more out of C9 than TL. I think it's more of a question of, is it wrong that they could possibly be doing that? It's not like, hey, look, you're not getting ready for Worlds. Is it wrong that they're not getting ready for Worlds right now? Like, I think that is the question.
I think it's wrong that TL is just rerunning 2019. I think it's wrong that TL is not innovating on stuff they had problems with. Like 2019 Worlds, TL had so much problems with pick and ban because they didn't play core champions. Let's just ban Kiana. Let's just ban Lucian. We're literally doing what you guys did in 2019. We're not going to play some of the carry solo lanes. We're not going to play around our solo lanes as much. And we're just going to be a bot lane oriented conservative teamfight team again. I think there's a huge problem with just repeating what they have.
Like, I mean, I don't even think that they're repeating what they have. Like, I don't even view them as bot lane oriented. Like, what games have they really played around bot lane and had their bot lane just like carry them? Even the Varus Tahm Kench game that they just played, where Doublelift like looked really, really good. They just won lane 2v2. It's not like they did anything to influence that lane in terms of mid and jungle, right? Like it was just, you know, them just laning it and winning lane because they had a good matchup into worse players. So I don't even see them like, they don't even have their old playstyle nailed down where it's like, hey man, like we're having our jungler play around bot. We're getting the early like bot gank in there. We're trying to blow summoners. We're just giving Doublelift like a setup for an easy time. It just feels like they're all just kind of playing. So to me, it just seems like it's one of those things where they've kind of viewed it as like, hey, we've like went super ham the whole season and like gotten burnt out by the time we went to Worlds, and like we could win spring, whatever. It's like, let's just try to like ramp up throughout the season and like kind of peak at the right times instead of like really just like overcommitting it in the beginning of the season, maybe doing really well, having a good regular season, but then just like being, you know, whatever in playoffs and barely squeaking out a game 5 victory versus TSM. It seems like they're more trying to like reset their mindset and be like, okay, once Broxah gets here, now we're like a team. Now we're going to start like putting in effort. So I expect like better performances from here on out. And every single player I talk to says that even though TL right now is like bad, right? Like when you watch the games, you just think TL is bad. Every single player I talk to thinks the top 3 teams are going to be C9, TSM, and TL. Every single one.
Do you think they're going to have a different approach to the playstyle if they haven't figured stuff out yet? If right now it's them not doubling down, do you think they will be solo lane oriented when they need to be? Do you think they won't have the champion pull problem that they had last Worlds?
I don't know about solo lane oriented. Like, I don't know if I still am unsure about impact on carries. Like, obviously there was times where he was like able to play like things like Vladimir when they were in the meta, but it was always kind of like team fight AD carries. I never thought he was that good at things like Fiora, Camille, those types of champions, which like are definitely pickable, especially with Aatrox being such high priority and Sejuani getting buffs. Like those champions should like really, really, really be able to like take over games. I don't see them being that team. I just don't think they have like the skill set for it. I could see them being like mid lane / bot lane oriented, but I don't really see them being like a top lane focused team. It just seems like that is just not the strength of the players they have.
Yeah, I think this all goes back to just the paradigm shift of the LCS going with this format and Team Liquid running the gauntlet, basically being what Cloud9 is right now the last 2 years, and saying, hey, look, this is the strategy that we've gone with. This is how we're going to try to set ourselves up for success. We have our super SAP metrics system so that we kind of have an idea of how we want to moving forward and achieve the least amount of burnout, but the most amount of efficiency as we hit Worlds. You know, like whatever that is, they're sticking to the guns, and it doesn't feel good. That it looks like sandbagging. It looks like they're not fixing those things, but at the end of the day, they haven't got their jungler. They just did, and they have a game plan moving forward. It's not like they didn't boot camp. It's not like they didn't. They don't scrim. It's not like they do.
They didn't boot camp. Doublelift. Okay, Jensen boot camp with Broxah.
That's not a boot camp.
Core JJ boot camp in Korea. Doublelift boot camp. Doublelift boot camp with Lina.
What does that
Doublelift
mean?
boot camp with Lina in Korea and China. Okay, everyone boot camped. Everyone picked a partner and boot camp.
I just never understand why that's considered a boot camp. It's like, oh, you mean you like you mean you guys like, oh, the European stayed in Europe, the Korean stayed in Korea, and then the NA players stayed in NA. Oh, great. Yeah, great fucking boot camp. Like a boot camp is like when you go as a team to try to improve together, even if you're not like scrimming a bunch, etc. Just to like get comfortable around each other, just to get to know everyone on the team, like just have that like bonding experience. You can't have a boot camp without all 5 players. So it's not, I feel like that's just nice terminology. People just like the word boot camp because it sounds hardcore. It sounds like you're like in there fucking doing push-ups and shit. Like every single day, you're just going hard as fuck, waking up 5 a.m. You have like a drill sergeant yelling at you. Like that's how it sounds. And people are like, yeah, dude, it was hardcore. But in reality, it was just they fucking they woke up in Europe and they're like, all right, let's play some fucking solo. Actually, let's eat first. Like, what do you want to order? You want to order what, McDonald's for the 15th time this week? Let's do it. Like that was more of their
Vulcan and Men did. They just did it in Korea, right?
I mean, NA bootcamp is you go to Korea, you eat Korean food, and then you experience Korean culture, and then you say you practice really hard while going out at night at Korean clubs and asking Korean coaches to take you out and asking Korean players to hang out. I'm sure not every team did it that way, but most NA boot camps turn out to be that.
Yeah, I don't know, man. It just has a like a hard ass connotation when you say boot camp instead of like, hey, we played some video games in Korea together. Like that just sounds way worse.
I will say that's probably the thing I wish that I got to do the most, doing one of the overseas boot camps. We didn't get to do that for Golden Guardians.
Yeah. People don't look forward to a boot camp, but you can see the way Daniel talks about it. Oh man, I wanted to go to overseas boot camp. Like you're not going to you shouldn't be looking forward to a boot camp. You should be like, oh my god, we're going to a boot camp. Like, holy fuck, I need to be ready. I need to be prepared. Where Daniel, you know what it is. It's a fucking mini vacation.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, like, yeah, I expect my players to go. We did what did we do over at Golden Guard? We did
we went to San Fran.
We went to San Francisco and we scrimmed at Esports Arena, and we could only play until like 11 because there wasn't space for us. Lol. All right. So that's documenting highly the TL's successes, potential for the future, some of the missteps, and hopefully they'll be able to change things up as they now have their new jungler. A team that doesn't really need to change too much up because they actually did not go to a booty camp, but an actual boot camp is Cloud9. Cloud9 dominant. What more can you say about this team? 8-0. They've been historically good. They've ran through every single team. The only time it looks close is like maybe the first, like during draft and the first 5 minutes after draft. And then after that, it's just been a dumpster. A dumpster fire, like, and they're the ones with the matches.
That's how you can tell that C9 is a team that like is not at the top level of gameplay, because when you see them play, like that play that they made versus TSM, right? You have Kiana into Renekton, and you have Elise into Gragas, and you feed 2 kills and double buffs to the Renekton mid in this nightmare matchup. Like that is your fucking counter pick. And you feed that to TSM, and TSM just still can't win the game because they're so much better. Like those mistakes, you do that shit versus G2, you're getting stomped. Like that game is going to be like, assuming that it's actual G2 and not G2 versus Misfits and Schalke that we saw last week. Like if you play against a really good team, and you make those types of mistakes, you're getting exploited. Like the game just ends there. So, the way that I see it is C9 is like good. They're better than all the NA teams, but it more just shows that like NA teams, even when they get a small advantage, can never beat C9 because they're just like so much less coordinated. Like they'll just show up to fights and just lose Herald fights going in 1-by-1, etc. Yeah. So C9 is good, but they're not like that fucking insane. It's like I would not say that they would be like a top 2 team in EU. I think that right now, if they're in Europe, they'd be competing for the 3, 4, 5 seed with like Rogue, Misfits, and Rogue, Misfits, and potentially Fnatic, etc. So,
yeah, dude, I think C9 is really good, and I'm in fucking love with C9. I like that they play the game properly. I like that they're taking risks, and I like that their playstyle is so multi-dimensional. Like that's what we've been asking for NA teams, and C9 finally fucking doing it.
And people, you have you have 6 teams in Europe that play like that. You have OG, or you have 5 teams, right? You have OG, Misfits, Rogue, G2, and Fnatic all play like that in Europe. So it's like that's why NA looks so doomed, because like our best team is like competing for top 6 in EU.
I will agree with some of the stuff you said. Like C9, there's definitely cracks, but no team in NA is abusing the cracks. And C9 does a good job of not backing down once they make the mistake. They always are still going for it, and they like doing like every single time C9 approaches a team fight, they always have one person flanking. They know exactly, like, we don't want to do 5 people on one side, 5 people on the other side, just going at it. Licorice always looking for flanks. They don't 50-50 Baron. Like they just do everything the way it's supposed to be done.
Yeah, the thing is, like, there's a lot of times where you can tell that they're just more coordinated than other teams, and that's like why they're winning. So like the play yesterday against CG, Monday Night League, where they like Rumble went for the kill, Jizuke went for the kill under turret at like level 3, and they're just running topside. They're just like, the EG is just running out topside with Rumble, Jarvan. They like obviously lost the 2v2 after Jizuke flashed in or whatever, or like tried to go for the kill, got E flashed under turret, etc. That situation, their top lane doesn't even have priority, right? Like C9's top lane does not have priority. He's getting pushed in by the Renekton, but Licorice just moves first. He's just like, oh, I know what's happening on the map. They're way more communicative, and they have a better like feel of like how each of them want to play. Like it's clear that they just have a better idea of what's happening in the game than the enemy team most of the time. So these are situations where like I don't view it as like, oh, versus a good team, this is like 2 kills. This is just not, this is a situation where it's like, oh, they blow some flashes, but everyone lives. But in NA, that's like, oh shit, now we have a 3-1 advantage with double buffs and the game is fucking like over. It's like turbo loss for the enemy team at that point. So, I mean, I still see the flaws in C9's gameplay, but I like that they're like confident and they at least play like a team, because you're going to need that when it comes to like playing against better teams. And what I hope happens is if they play, you know, MSI or some shit, or they like start getting beat by like some teams in NA, they still play with that level of coordination and that level of confidence, because you need that when you go overseas and you start playing against other teams that are good, because you're just going to be more behind than you are now. Like it's not going to be like, hey, we just fucked up level 2. Oh, and then we just won like a Rift Herald fight like 3 minutes later into the game. You're going to have to pick your timings a lot better than that. Like you're not just going to win all these just because you're better in every position. So definitely can see the flaws, but like as a team, they at least play together, which is useful for NA.
They're also so good at abusing bad teams. Like C9, they know how to disengage from a fight. When both teams are good and both teams disengage from a fight, they know, hey, we can't take the fight anymore. We use our cooldowns. But NA teams don't do that. Once the fight starts, they're always going in and in and in. I think it showed best versus TSM versus C9, where they're fighting for the Herald, and TSM gets the Herald, and C9 disengaging, and TSM doesn't have any ultimates, and they all chase into C9, and 4 people die for free, and C9's like, well, we're going to kill all 4 people. This is game over. We still have stopwatches. We still have flashes. Why are you chasing in here, idiots? And yeah, they're just good at abusing bad teams, so I'm so excited to see them play versus better and better teams and see how they adapt.
Yeah, I mean, and also like something that is good for their team right now is that every position is like, every person in their position is like the
1 or
best
2.
or the second best right now. So even if the mid and jungle randomly ends, or like Blabber makes a huge mistake and kills Niski, and Niski's in a bad lane already, like their bot lane is just ready to step up and carry. Like you see, like the whole turning point of that TSM game for me was them just winning the 2v3 bot side. They get ganked by the Gragas with MF.
That was Dardoch. Oh, that was Dardoch fucking up.
Kind of. I mean, it's just bad coordination. I mean, that's just inherently your champions don't synergize, right? Gragas and MF wanted to do different things in the team fight. Gragas wants to like separate them, like knock the carries back and one person in, and MF wants to like ult a whole group of people. So like I think that there's this there's just like anti-synergy there between those two champions. But just in general, like you look at that, right? They try to engage on the Tahm Kench Varus, and they end up they lose a bunch of fucking summoners and shit, and the Varus Tahm Kench gets so much pressure out of that. So when they go to the Rift Herald fight, oh, MF has no ult, Gragas has no ult, Leona has no ult, like etc. And they're just in so much of a worse position. Whereas like versus better teams, you're not going to be able to just get an advantage in any lane. Right. Like the interaction between like enemy champions and your own, like if your 2v2 just loses or wins, that's going to dictate the game. It's not like, oh, well, we just have better bot lane. Our Varus Tahm Kench is just way better than your Leona MF players. So we just win that lane regardless. And when we get ganked, it's not that, oh, the Grogs is ahead and he came to gank us, so now we're going to fucking die or we're going to lose summoners. It's, oh, we can 2v3 that. So all their players are just being able to like make up and like cover, and everyone can step up and carry. Like we've seen literally every single player on C9 carry a game.
Yeah.
At this point. So
that was something that we wanted to touch on here on Facecheck. This team has been so damn dominant in 2020. As you see the whole roster there, Reaper and Wes Rice now elevated from academy coach from last year to assistant head coach. We wanted to compare them to some of the old greats of North American lore.
Season 5 Team Liquid with me and Piglet. Let's go.
I said great.
Oh, wait, no?
So we'll start with both the two teams that come to mind are both from the 2016 season. We'll start off with all these players still in the league. TSM's 2016 summer campaign where they went 17-1. Pooped on everybody. Won NA against, I believe it was was it Cloud9 again? I think it was Cloud9, or yeah, I think it was Cloud9 in the summer, and then moved to Worlds and proceeded to shit the bed. Last season that they had Svenskeren on there, but this was the Hauntzer, Svenskeren, Bjergsen, Doublelift, and Biofrost, one of the best, if not the best iteration of TSM the last time they'd been that dominant.
So for this TSM team, I want to talk about a few of their weaknesses. I actually think this TSM team was really one-dimensional. This was when Hauntzer didn't really develop as a carry yet. He was still like tree SM. He played a lot of Maokai. I think his biggest carry pick was stuff like Gnar. So they were very Bjergsen Doublelift-oriented teamfight team. They made a lot of mistakes sometimes, but it wouldn't matter because NA teams wouldn't be able to capitalize. So, and we did get to see this team play internationally. Yes, like they were still one of the most hyped up NA teams, but a lot of their weaknesses showed internationally, where I feel like this C9 team plays more of the correct game. They're both just as dominant, but this C9 is more optimal, where this TSM was just really good at killing teams in NA.
Dom, you muted.
Wait, I just muted.
Yeah, you muted yourself.
when I meant to talk. I literally I thought I was muted, and then I just muted when I tried to talk. Unlucky, but I think that this TSM team at least had like really good mid jungle synergy, which I feel like a lot of the historically good NA teams like haven't had. Like whenever Doublelift teams have been good, it's always been mainly around bot lane. Like TL for the last 4 splits, it's all been bot lane focused, right? So I think the biggest strength is like when I remember this 2016 TSM team play, I just remember like Syndra Lee Sin from Bjergsen and Svenskeren just actually being able to like shit on top Korean players at Worlds, you know? So I don't know. I feel like this C9 team is definitely like more balanced, whereas before it was like Tree SM, like you said, Hauntzer playing the fucking tanks top lane, and they would just play like, you know, like Lucian bot lane. They played a fuck ton of Lucian in 2016. You have the infamous Doublelift dashing into Crown, etc. But it just seems like this C9 team is just like way more clean in terms of coordination. Whereas TSM, it felt like it was like, okay, we're like good at tanks top, we have a good mid jungle, and then we have a good bot lane. Like it felt very segmented, but it seems like C9 is just better together than this team was. Like they're just more intelligent about like, hey, how are we going to come together and like which fights are we going to take as a group? Whereas that's always when this version of TSM would crumble.
Yeah, I think that's also the accurate version of it. This TSM version was just they brute forced everybody, and I think that's what was so great about it. They were able to just run over teams, and you're just waiting who's going to pop off in this game between Sven, Bjerg, and Doublelift, and when is Hauntzer going to make a game-changing initiation? When is Bio going to get the pick? It was a lot of fun.
Daniel, do I have it correct? Is this the best of 3 season? Because I remember,
yes,
if it was this TSM or the other TSM, that would like kind of fuck up the first game.
Yeah,
and then they would just win the 2 and 3.
This was the beginning of best of 3.
Yeah, this was the first split they did best of 3.
Yeah, so this TSM just seems way more mortal than this C9 does.
Yeah, I believe at this time as well. I'm taking a look.
This is one of Immortals is like 16-2 as well. So TSM and Immortals are like the only 2 teams that could win in regular season, and then somehow Immortals didn't even make Worlds. It's a crazy season.
Yep. Just for context, after this is when Doublelift retired. Wild Turtle comes back from Immortals because Immortals moves on and picks up a young kid named Cody-san. And
they redid the whole roster.
Yeah, they redid the whole roster. And TSM ended up winning Spring as well. This one was over in the Air Canada Center. I think this one was in Toronto, where they beat Cloud9 3-2. So that was one team that we wanted to take a look at, that this young Cloud9 roster, this new Cloud9 roster looks like. The other team that we want to take a look at, same season, and we'll go even the whole year. It was Immortals all of 2016. Their regular season record was 33-3. They went 17-1 in the first split, and then 16-2 in the second split, losing to, obviously, TSM. The one team that they lost to in the spring season. Can you guys guess who it was? Spring 2016, Immortals loses to one team.
Spring 20... CLG! The backdoor. Xmity steals Baron, Darshan backdoor. It was CLG.
I believe it was CLG. That's correct. I'm looking. Yeah. Spring season. I think it was... Yes, I'm looking.
Dude, you know how some people are so good at trivia? Like, especially old people? It's just like, well, you don't really know trivia. You just fucking live through it. Like, it's not like you studied history. You just live through it. So if you ever did league trivia, I feel like I'd be pretty decent because I don't like go back and learn League trivia, but I just lived through it, so I know most of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Loco was on stage getting his ass beat by this Immortals team every week.
This roster, I mean, to speak of it, it was really good, but I think rest of NA was so bad. Like Reignover and Huni came in and they're like, hey, idiots, this is how you play top lane carries. This is how you split the map. This is how you dive at level 3. And this is how after you dive and you burn their flash, you just reset and then you bring your mid laner and then you dive again as 3-man and your top laner can't play the game and you just stay ahead on tempo and you keep playing to the top lane. And they did that perfectly. This was a very, very stylistically defined team. I think Reignover had like less than 5% jungle proximity on Turtle and Adrian. He almost never went bottom. They always play through Huni, and they were able to win through 1-4 style. Like this, I think this was a great roster, but I think rest of NA was so bad, and they just could not figure out how to beat Huni Reignover. And once again, I just think this C9 team is way more well-balanced. Like once people start figuring out, hey, maybe we can handle C9 in this way. Maybe we can tackle Licorice Blabber this way. I fully believe like C9 can adapt and play towards other sides of the map. But this Immortals team, once you're able to ban out Huni in certain ways, ban out Reignover in certain ways, and disassemble them from topside, they were actually really, really weak.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this Immortals team, like obviously when you put 33-3 regular season record, it makes it seem like this team was like really fucking good. You got to remember that this is also the team that went 17-1 in regular season and then lost. I think it was the first round that they played. I think it was semifinals.
It was against TSM.
Yeah,
it was
against
a
TSM,
place,
and they got 3-0'd, and this was the famous Lucian Huni top game.
Just tilt them. Yeah. This is the Just Tilt Them interview.
Yeah, just tilt them. So this team, like it. Obviously, in regular season, they looked probably like equally or maybe more dominant than this C9 team. They were so good at the beginning, but when you got to see like the totality of what the team ended up like amounting to, I feel like it's really hard to say that you'd have to predict C9 to crash and burn to really say that this C9 version is worse.
Yeah. Again, just it was fun to watch during these times the way that these two dominant teams just pooped on everybody. TSM was the only team to beat Immortals. They went 2-0 against them. Who beat TSM in the summer?
T1.
One team.
That was the T1 in Rengar. Yeah.
That was the Rengar game.
Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah. And then Phoenix won. That's right. Phoenix won in relegations as they normally were, except for that one season in Vancouver. The context for these two, for these players here, Huni obviously still around. He went over back to go play for SKT. After this season, and they Immortals filled it in with Flame. Reignover moved on to go to, was it
TL?
CLG? Or was it TL? Went to go to TL before he went to CLG. And now is coaching for Cloud9. Pobe also coaching now over for TL Lamau. Turtle still kicking and thriving over at FlyQuest. And Adrian has disappeared into the cryptocurrency shroud. He's no longer exists. All right, well, go ahead. Where is he?
Literally got a text from him yesterday. I posted a story that I was in K-Town. I'm not sure if you can see it, but he's like, are you still in K-Town? Adrian's hanging around. He said he got offers and stuff, like, but it's like chilling. He was queen in auto chess. I'm not sure how much TFT he played, but Adrian just, as you said, made tons of money from crypto, and he's like chilling in K-Town.
Oh man, I remember TFT where Loco had double my games and was diamond while I was in Challenger. I remember that.
You had Hafu coaching.
I mean, you could watch Hafu coach me. You got to see. I mean, I did it on stream.
The rich stays richer. It's not whatever.
Yeah.
Next section.
We've tilted Loco.
Yeah, we've tilted Loco. So this Immortal squad moves on, builds around Pobelter, and eventually falls apart as a lot of things happen there. Noah moving on and getting ousted, all that good stuff. They moved into Overwatch. But yeah, so good times back in 2016 League. And the reason why I want to give this context, Loco and Dom, is because I've realized we have so many viewers that have only been watching for less than 3 years. Maybe they'll go back 3 years. So like these are the types of teams, and some of the people that watch and listen, maybe not necessarily on Twitch. We have a lot of the hardcore fans that watch live. Love you guys. But a lot of our fans didn't know, you know, Dom's history as a player back on Curse with the long hair, or Loco back over at MIG as a K-pop star. Like, they don't know a lot of those things, so I think it's important that we like give context when we have that opportunity to do so. One team that needs a lot of context to figure out what the fuck is going on. Oh,
and people don't even know Daniel used to work for Riot. That's why he shields Riot on every time we have this show.
I don't always shield them, but
you
it's
shield
to give
Riot
context.
every single fucking time.
It's to give context, because that's like saying I hate America, right? That's a massive thing that you're trying to say. Like, Riot's a big company. Like, you can't be like, Riot's bad. Like, no, there's always a lot that's in there, and there's context in there, and we try our best to caveat it and whatnot. Dang, my transition was so good, you ruined it. Something. Oh, need context, just like what I provide for Riot. Who needs a lot of context right now is CLG, because these guys are bad. They're really bad. Everyone thought they were going to be good, but now they're just really bad. The only player that we thought was going to be bad is Ruin, who's badder than what we thought. What can CLG do? Because right now, instead of being counter logic gaming, there's a lot of counter logic blaming going on. Who's responsible? How do we fix it?
So who did their research? Who watched the Weldon stream where Weldon sat for hours and explained to us week by week what's going on in CLG? Who watched?
Yo, dog, I go to the gym for pain. I'm not about to go do that on stream.
So Weldon does this thing called Weldon Weekly, right? Where he normally talks about what's going on with the team every week. He stopped doing it this year because he said he's not head coach. But I think it might also have to do with their record. So he streamed, I think, yesterday or 2 days ago, and I got to catch a lot of it. And he was talking about kind of the problems on CLG. And one thing that I knew this was a fucking problem, but he talked about song leadership and how good coaches enable players. And they were like, we had a draft plan, and a lot of times on stage, a player will talk about, oh, trust me, I can carry you with this pick. And then they give him that pick, and then he just absolutely shits the bed on it.
So Crown is like sitting there like, dude, just give me Yasuo. I got this shit. And then he just runs it down on stage like, whoops, my bad, guys.
I actually was thinking it's more Ruin. Like, Ruin with like fucking Silas pick, the Kale pick. Like, I can 1v9 on Kale. Give it to me. Oh my god, my Silas is best in the world. I'm going to steal all their ultimates. Just let me play Silas, coach. But I see a lot of CLG's draft being really wonky. He did try to defend it by saying, yeah, but we never had a draft on stage where we didn't have a true win condition. I'm like, yes, true, but all your win conditions were really shitty. So CLG, I really do think, has a leadership problem.
Everything always has a win condition, I feel like. I feel like there's so many times, there's going to be so few times when you get a draft that actually just has no win condition at all. Like, I don't know how you could even, like, do that as a coach. Like, what team composition would have no win condition? It's just like, it's all about how good is your win condition and how attainable is it? Like, how easy is your win condition to like execute? And a lot of their drafts just don't have like that easy of a win condition. Like the Lucian Kale draft, like, sure, you can say, hey, Kale into set, we got the 1-3-1 win condition. We split Lucian top, Kale bot, and they just can't do anything because we have like winning side lanes, right? That's just not viable. Like, if you don't have good players and you don't have good team coordination. So like, to me, that means literally nothing when somebody talks about good win condition, or like we had a win condition. Like, every draft has a win condition.
Are you leaning towards more players like underperforming, like compared to what we thought they would be, but are actually like a leadership coaching problem? I know it's never just black and white, it's players or coach, but I lean so heavily towards this as like a leadership and a coaching problem. I
think it's a player problem. Like, I feel like players have been playing unreasonably bad themselves, like individually. Like Crown, dude, I had him last year. I had him at 4th best mid laner in the league, right? Like, Crown was the 4th best mid laner under Jensen, Niski, Bjergsen last year, right? And then this year, he actually is just terrible, like every game almost. Like, he plays Yasuo into Vlad, gets no advantage. They're also blind picking Yasuo, which I think is fucking weird. He plays Rumble into Ika's Azir. He like gets some lane advantage but doesn't get a kill, and like he plays a Syndra game where he just can't hit a skill shot on Jizuke and gets killed in a gank where he sees the enemy jungler like level 4. There's so many like situations where it's like, I don't give a fuck like what the coach is doing. As a player, you just need to fucking know what's going on in the game. Like, you're just individually playing bad. Like, that's what's happening. Like, you watch Ruin play, it's like, dude, I don't think the coach is making you pick Sylas into Ornn and go down 50 CS versus Broken Blade. Like, that's just not a coaching thing.
But coach should be like, don't pick Sylas here. You're not good at Sylas. Why is the coaching staff giving over stuff like Ornn? Like, just there's so much things that the coaching staff can do to make it easier on the players, and I feel like it's not being done at all.
Sure, but I guess their mentality is this, like, they've probably tried this type of stuff in scrims and it's like probably not going that well. So their mentality is like, hey, let's give these players what they want. So at least they have some comfort. Like, let's give our players comfortable picks and maybe we'll be a better team.
Yeah. Like that's what I'm interested in, Loco and Dom, right? As a coach and as a player, how do you decide that? Or what points do you decide that? What are the factors that go into it? Because it might not always be a consistent, like, no, we're always sticking to the plan, or yes, we're always going to change our picks based off of feel. But like, what goes into feeling that? Just you can list some of the things that go into those conversations, especially on stage.
I mean, on stage, it's so hard to tell a player no, because like right before they're about to get into a game, you're telling them, no, you can't do that thing that you really believe you can do. Yeah. And it's always like lingering in players' mental. Why didn't he let me play carry? Why is he putting me on Ornn? Like, you never want to do that as a coach. So when a player asks, it's really hard. So you need to do a lot of that before the draft prep has to be done really meticulously, where everyone is on the same page. Like, we know what kind of roles, like what kind of champions we're prioritizing. And it feels like CLG doesn't have that. And I know for a fact, because Weldon talked about it on the stream, where they had a game plan and they shifted their game plan a little bit to counter the enemy team's draft. And when they got to pick 4 and 5, they realized they fucked up the draft because they tried to counter. And a lot of that happens because of bad prep, or a player speaks up, oh, this pick is really good here, and the coach allows it, and it actually fucks your draft, and it actually fucks, maybe you don't have an engage anymore, maybe you don't have a frontline anymore, maybe you're all AD because of that. There's just a lot of things that can go wrong if you don't prep properly and you listen to player whim on stage. And I feel like CLG does way too much of that.
Yeah, I mean, player whim is like one thing, but it's the thing is, even when they have like the drafts where it's like, okay, this is, so you have your player drafts, right? Where you can, or like where you're like, okay, you have the Kale top into set, right? Like that's one where you can be like, oh, maybe Ruin chose that. Oh, you have the Sylas into Ornn. Maybe that's something that Ruin chose again. Oh, you have the Yasuo into Vlad. Maybe that's another player draft, right? But then they still suck dick when they're playing the fucking coach drafts. So what the fuck is this excuse? Like, the coach draft for me, the one where I'm like, okay, your coach wants to do this one, is the one where they have their they played last week into Immortals. They have the Rumble, they have the Lee Sin, they have the Aatrox, they have a stable bot lane. Like, I think they had. Maybe it was MF. Yeah, I think it was MF into Xayah. I think they had MF Leona as well. Like, that is like the stereotypical, like, this is a good fucking draft. MF Leona, quality bot lane. Aatrox, good into Ornn top, and like, you know, a priority pick in this meta. Rumble, one of the best champions, banned a fuck ton. Like, really, really fucking good as well. Lee Sin, one of the most contested junglers. Like, that is your coach draft, and you suck on that too. So it's like, maybe you just fucking suck. Like, maybe that's just what it is.
Maybe. But I also think if they streamline their practice and they just practice the coach draft the entire fucking week and just play the coach draft on stage, it's not going to look as bad as this. What's showing on stage is a lot of different mindsets.
That was the most frustrating game to watch. Yeah, they had a better chance of winning the game, and then they just fucking opened mid and let Immortal just end the game when they have Ocean Soul.
Yeah.
Like, I just have no fucking faith in this team. It's like, they both suck. Like, when you suck this bad, it can't just be either, oh man, you know, the players are actually really good, but the coaches are just holding them back. It's like, no, dude, there's no coach in the world that's like, no, I think opening mid is the right call here on stage. Just make sure you open the game with Ocean Soul. Like, that never fucking happens, bro.
Okay,
like,
so
you just suck at that point.
I will tell you, I'm not going to do it. Don't do it on the show, Daniel. But guys, go through CLG players that are very active on Twitter and look at their likes and some of the stuff they've been liking, because so many people have been openly talking about what's the problem on CLG, and players can never openly come out and say, oh, this is the problem. So they've been secretly talking to us through Twitter likes.
You can do that for all teams and all players. And I think the
Cadian method. I like it.
Yeah, you can't blink. There's nowhere to blink to. So it's find the likes. We'll find it. I think the hate on this team wouldn't be so high if the expectations and the dare we use the P word potential of this team wasn't so high. And I think that's why when they have a quote unquote coach draft that looks great, you know, Weldon / Song are able to get what they want here. and then they look so bad, it doesn't make sense. And so I think a lot of the hate that's coming towards them is deserved. You know, a lot of people put their, I'm going to use the F word, faith into CLG. There it is. I use potential and faith.
Are you going to use Golden Age too?
To, you know, for this team. And
it might be the Golden Age because they've been getting a golden shower from every other team every single game.
Oh my God.
It'll be a different type of
Okay, R. Kelly. Okay, R. Kelly.
But yeah, the CLG roster just not getting it done. So, Loco, you were saying earlier, I guess off stream, there are a couple of things that you feel like they can fix, like some of the fixes there for them, including possibly getting another voice out there.
Mm-hmm. So there's been LS has said I think G2 and CLG are his favorite teams, and he also
how convenient. How convenient. G2 is my favorite team. Carlos,
the best Western team and the team.
Yo hablo español in Korean. I don't just speak Korean.
And LS is a streamer for CLG, and I'm pretty sure he's pretty well connected to CLG because a lot of his, I would call LS Academy players like Deuce, RJSDND. And
Who doesn't even look that good in Academy, by the way. Like, I mean, obviously he's role swapped, etc. He was a mid laner, now he's playing top. But like, I watched some of his Academy games.
He said Fnatic in CLG. Excuse me. Yeah, he said he's in G2. My bad. He said Fnatic. And there's another one, Wind. I also think he went to CLG Academy.
Yep.
So
80K.
I disagree with LS on a lot of his takes, but I actually think some of it has been incredibly on point, incredibly smart. Like the itemization thing. That's been something that a lot of people have been like talking about before, but LS has really popularized it, and I think he's actually 100% correct about the Liandry's over Morello stuff a lot of times, the Ornn items, and I actually really agree with the OP champions that he's been picking out. He picked out Soraka, he talked about Ornn before other people. I disagree with the jungle takes regarding like Lee at least just being terrible champions and like you should be scaling in jungle. I think jungle needs to be aggressive. Jungle needs to gank. Jungle needs to skill check. Like people are doing dumb stuff. Like you need a way to punish. But in terms of like someone bringing a very, very, very strong voice, I think LS will be that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the one Liandry Morello point that people like kind of glaze over is there's a lot of times where Liandry is better than Morello as a completed item, right? But the Oblivion Orb is almost always, in my opinion, like when you're playing things like
it's God tier. Yeah,
like the Oblivion Orb is almost always better than the the Haunting guys. So I feel like you have to just consider that more like than a lot of people think. A lot of people are like, oh, do they have like healing? No, well then build Liandry's every fucking game. But there's times where it's just like, hey man, just sit on the Oblivion Orb and you're just gonna be doing more damage. So yeah, I mean the Liandry stuff like versus Morello, like I agree with the completed item. I just think that needs to be like more considered by people because you know as soon as you build an Oblivion or people are already talking about Liandry versus Morello, where it's like there's other components to that discussion. But yeah, I mean I think that some of the jungle stuff is right. I think that kha'zix is undervalued by NA for sure. We saw it in Korea on the patch where jungle wasn't even buffed yet, and then we saw it in LEC and it looked good when I watched the kha'zix in LEC. So I think those make sense. The other champion he talks about is Kindred. I think Kindred is dog shit right now. Like, I know it scales really well. I just don't like the champion in general. Like, I think that that's like really hard to play. It doesn't provide as much. And it's definitely abusable. So there's that stuff. And then also like Lee Elise are not super god tier. Like I hate the idea of first picking Elise from Dignitas and then giving over Ornn Aphelios, right?
Yeah, that's fucking dog shit. But to just talk more generally, I think LS is someone with a lot of strong ideas and that are very, very short on his idea. And it would put everyone on CLG in the same page at the very least. So I do think someone like that would benefit. But also, here's the thing about popular streamers. Being a popular streamer is one of the best lifestyle. You get to pick your own hours, you make insane amounts of money, and you don't really work for anyone. So for asking someone that's like averaging the kind of viewership that LS is, I think it's suicide on LS's part to coach and give up that viewership. So I personally don't think it will happen, but at least entertaining the idea, I actually think it would be a really good fit if for some reason he really wanted to coach.
Yeah, I remember we had for Golden Guardians, Valkyrie came in and just shit all over everything and was like, hey, Golden Guardians, this is what you need to do to fix everything. It's so easy. And then I think I was like, someone was forced to interview him, so I didn't interview him. Someone interviewed him, he didn't get a gig. He got a gig over at Misfits, and I think that's when Misfits, like, that was last season of Misfits. So that explains itself. A lot of learning lessons for Valkyrin, but he wasn't streaming as much, and he's not as potent, I think, as a North American streamer. So there's a lot to go into, those considerations. Go ahead, Dom. Sorry.
No, I think that Ellis definitely has like unique take. I just think that like just the way he views it isn't completely healthy, right? Like there's champions that I'll never agree with LS on. Like the main one that I've always agreed or disagreed with him on is Olaf. Like he thinks Olaf is just like dog shit, never pickable, horrible, like only good in first clear, etc. Where I just think that like Olaf is just a strong champion. When we see it in Korea all the time, right? They prioritize Olaf really heavily. Rogue, that's like fucking banned against him every game. I think Olaf is especially strong in this meta with Soraka top and like Yumi coming in. I feel like this pick is super, super good. So I think that you just have to kind of like take everything with a grain of salt. Like this, if you're getting strong opinions, you're gonna have ones that are gonna be like really correct, and you're gonna have ones that, in my opinion, are gonna be really wrong. So it just has to be like, you just have to
correct or wrong. CLG would be on the same page with all 5 players, and at least with the staff. And I think right now that's a huge problem. Like, I don't think the 5 players are on the same page. I don't think the staff is on the same page as players. There's just not a good team identity, and we're getting a less than the sum of their parts. So yeah, whoever they get, I want it to be like really strong opinion, because I don't think CLG should cut any of their players right now. Like Crown,
really?
They invest.
I think they should cut. I think they should immediately start cutting. Like
So
that's the thing. That's the thing that EU teams are just willing to do that NA teams aren't. It's like Jack Troll, you played 3 fucking bad weeks of LEC, you're out. Gilius 2 bad weeks, you're out. Like Forgiven, I don't know if he was benched or not. Obviously, it's like up in the air. But I assume that it was at least mutual. Like Schalke didn't want him there anymore to some degree as well. So
who did cut?
Well, I mean, yeah, it's just like I want to see like people getting fucking replaced by people that are looking good in a cat. Like, dude, I can't see a world where Pobelter comes in and is worse than Crown right now. I can't see a world where Demonte comes in and he's worse than Crown. I can't see a world where Lorlo comes in and he's playing worse than Ruin right now. Like, this is inexcusable. Like, fucking use the academy system.
Let's talk about the LEC versus LCS angle. LEC salary, a lot lower than LCS salary. And you know what happens when you bench a player? Like, a lot of times you lose the player in that season, and then there is like a really big divide between that player
and the management that said they believed in them and trusted them and they were the future and all that stuff. Yeah.
So benching a player like Crown, who they invested so much into in terms of salary and in terms of making sure they can get him over the other teams, is going to be like Crown might not.
Split time.
That's. I will say I like the LEC aspect of, hey, we'll bench players if they do badly, and we'll be way more active with it. But LEC has so much more players, like they're not beholden to stars like we are in LCS. Maybe that's a chicken or the egg.
Yeah, but that's our problem. That's like what I don't care about. It's like, bro, I don't give a fuck if Crown won a world championship. Take away the nameplate and look at how he's playing. With the way he's playing, you really think Demonte and Pobelter couldn't play better? You really think that? Like, I don't know.
I don't think
Demonte could.
I agree with you.
Playing really bad at the time.
I agree with
Sorry,
you. Demonte and Pope could be better, but I also see it from CLG's perspective due to how much they invested into Crown, and then like what happens if Demonte Pope doesn't work out, and like they also have to now go out of their way to pay for Demonte and Pope. Like someone in the chat said it, it is sunk cost fallacy, and also it is like how much resources available.
Okay, so let's say in the first half of the split, let's even give them an extra game. Let's say they double their wins, right? And they are 2-7 instead of 1-7. Yeah. You think that in the backside, any of these mid laners with CLG, the team's not going to go at least 2-7? Like their best possible situation for their first half of the split is 2-7. Like, you're really telling me that you can't do that with anyone else? This is bullshit. Like,
I agree with you. I'm with you. Like, I do think there should be players benched, but I'm saying there's nuance than just like Crown bad, let's bench Crown.
So we need to eventually move on from this. And as much as we love shitting on CLG, because I used to love them, you guys love to hate them. Let's focus on one player that you wouldn't replace and one player that you would replace that isn't Ruin.
Okay, I'm a Smoothie stan. I love Smoothie. I know how much like Smoothie puts into work, so I would not replace Smoothie. Unless Smoothie. All right, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you. I wouldn't replace Smoothie either. Like, people are like, oh, he gets caught randomly. Well, a lot of the times if you look at the map, it's like, wait, his whole team is just sitting in the base when they like have their turn, when they have their timing to actually control vision, like do something on the map. Like, people are just not with it, right? I would definitely not replace Smoothie here. Like he's the only person that could turn this team around. So like if you're looking for one player to replace, it's not Ruin. It has to be Crown, from my perspective. Like he's just, who is he better than? He's literally better than maybe 1 or 2 mids.
Right.
I just think that you're just not getting anything out of the player.
Interesting. Yeah, because I'm just looking at Wiggly and Stixay, like, all right, at what point do these guys start to? I don't think they get benched. You know, CLG locked them up with 3-year contracts, but like, at what point do they start taking
Wiggly
some of the blame?
Wiggly played fine this week. Yeah, like his Trundle, he played better than Closer in that game.
Wiggly's at least getting better.
Well, he's also like active in the game. Like if you're watching Wiggly playing Trundle, he goes for a level 2 gank, blows a flash mid, goes top, blows another flash. He's there for the counter gank. Like he's doing shit in the fucking game. Whereas like Crown is AFK, bro. He is literally just AFK in the fucking game.
Losing to Golden Glue, TPing at the
he's getting dicked by everyone. Like it doesn't matter who he's playing against. Somehow the other guy is just dicking him in some regard throughout the game.
We've got a decent sized chunk left of the show, but I wanted to get quick thoughts. I feel like we'd be remiss if we didn't at least touch on it. Quick thoughts. So try your best, guys, on Forgiven stepping down from Schalke the way that he did. Like, what did you think about that? Do you feel like it's right? Do you feel like the way he did it was right? Just quick thoughts on that?
I think it's completely correct. I feel like every player should step down from organizations like that by just shitting on all their former teammates and just making a public statement. Yes, that's my take, and I'm sticking to it.
My thing is, get a PR person. I know I'm not the best PR person. I know I've also fucking shot myself in the foot. But sometimes you need to realize, to put the ego to the side, get a PR person. Sometimes you don't have to talk about every single detail. I know not everything is your fault, but you don't have to mention it to the world. Just shut the fuck up, say sorry, and move on. So,
all right.
Let's do that.
Okay. Well, then there you go. So all of you EU fans, be appeased. We do a little bit of LEC. Not a lot, but just a little bit. 2 more sections to get through. We're going to speed through this one, but it's a branded segment, for us that we love using it. Good old Hot or Not. So a couple of teams that we felt like were ascending or descending. Got to get through it just because the graphics were great. Thank you so much to TJ Puma for pumping out all the graphics that we've done so far today. Golden Guardians, the first one we want to take a look at if they're hot or not. They are now holders, I think, of the longest win streak in the LCS at 3 since Cloud9, other than Cloud9. Sorry, when Sven died, it felt like they lost. That's what my brain just did. So anyway, Golden Guardians 4-4. Yeah, they beat CLG, which everyone's beating, but they did beat Dignitas, middle of the pack kind of team who was trying to, build off of their win on Saturday. So I thought that was decent there by Golden Guardians, and they're looking good. They're looking like they're getting the best out of what their team offers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think they're hot. I like how they draft. I love how Closer is playing. Golden Glue is better than what I expected. Keith is actually better than what I expected.
How bad did you expect Keith to be? My God.
Both of you. Wait. Both of you were flaming the shit out of him. That's not just a logo thing.
Let me saying is like, it's like how Keith is playing better than you expected. I feel like he's playing just as bad as I expected. Like, look, people are gonna be like, "Oh, he's playing well because they won and he hit that one thresh hook on double." Like, Jesus Christ, Mad Life is an NA. Fuck that shit, dude. He's getting caught like minimum 4 times a fucking game. Like, he runs around just inting, and when he ints, it's if Golden Guardians can turn that int into an engage, right? Because like as a support, your life doesn't matter that much. So as long as you int like at a kind of reasonable time where your team is like there to back it up, then it just becomes an engage. So like, I don't know, man. Keith is like he is getting better for sure.
Yeah.
But it's still something that is like, it's such a fucking stressful experience watching Keith. Like every single time Keith leaves the fountain, I'm just sitting there like Monka W at my fucking monitor, like, oh shit, he's gonna fucking die again. Like, how is it gonna happen this time, man? Like,
all right, I think Golden Guardians are hot. Dom, hot or not?
I think they're hot right now for them, but I don't think that they're gonna be like insane.
Okay,
right. That's fair. The biggest concern for me on this team is, and me and Loco are products of it, so I'm coming from this from a very biased perspective, but they're preaching patience. They had an interview with Anero. Yeah, we're going to be patient with Keith. We made the decision with the long term involved. and they haven't had anything hold over for more than a year, like consistency over for a year. So if this is like one of your weakest spots and you're going to be consistent with it, it's just been a history of like, hey, let's move on, let's get something else. So that's what I worry about. But the fact that they're 4-4, like this team is surprisingly, when they look good, and Closer is like a
I thought that this was
MVP
actually
candidate. Like he's so
I think
good.
that this is actually Closer's worst week.
Yes.
To be honest, like I thought his Sejuani game was like pretty bad. Like if you watch some of the team fights, he whiffed ults, and then also the Jarvan game he played, he has the tendency to over engage in team fights, which is actually like a very common like jungle mistake. I know that I fucking had this tendency too, where like just a late game in a team fight. You watch the Jarvan game where like FBI carried the team fight. He got that triple kill with flamethrower. And they ended up just like winning the game. Like that fight can lose you the game really easily because he plays really well early game for the most part. This Sejuani game, like I said, wasn't the best, but every other early game, he's always able to get advantages. It's just like in team fights, I feel like he's not the best team fighting jungler, which shouldn't matter that much. Like that's like when your role importance goes down throughout the game. It's like a jungle starts as like the most important role, and then as the game, it just scales down to like second support. But overall, I think that like if you total his entire performance over the split, I'd say he's been the second best jungler next to Blabber.
All right, well then there you go. So Golden Guardians on the ascendancy. I want to see who they play next week. I can't find it or whatever. All right, so let's go to Immortals, the other team that we felt like were on the ascendancy after dumping Team Liquid and just like Smithy just looking everyone straight in the eye. It was the greatest thing I saw this week. They drop a game to fucking because it was so tight. It was so tight to see it live. Evil geniuses, the evil achievers overachieving against the Immortals and getting the win and stopping Immortals' win streak at 3. How do you feel about this squad sitting at 5-3? Loca will go first, and then Dom, you can tee it off and take us off.
They're smart. They play smart. They draft smart. They know exactly what players they have. Draft for the late game. Don't play for outplays. Make sure you keep scaling. So I think they're doing exactly what they should be doing given the roster, but I think there's limitations on this team. I really don't like Altec playing stuff like Ezreal. I do agree with Dom. Ika's really shaky, so their carry backline needs to be a lot more solid for this team to be really good. And yeah, like I think they're good for what they're doing right now, but once people start figuring them out and once people start really attacking Ika and Altec, I think this team's gonna crash and burn a little.
Yeah, I think this team is a fraud right now. Like 5-3 is such like a lucky record for how they've played overall. People are gonna be super high on them because like everyone remembers the good games, right? Like they smashed TL, but that was kind of just like a Broxah and then the other game that I thought was really good from McSmithy was the Broxah game. Or sorry, not the Broxah game. The Rek'Sai game where he played.
He played Broxah against the Team Liquid.
The one versus Broxah was like his good game. So he had two different good games. It was the one versus Meteos and the one versus Broxah, right?
Mm-hmm.
The one versus Meteos with Rek'Sai, he actually like took over the game. He was the best Rek'Sai we've seen so far. But a lot of the games that they've won, they've had no business winning. So like this could easily be 5-3. There's 2 games here that I think they should have lost, which was the first TSM game that was like the 70-minute game.
Mm-hmm.
And then the CLG game where they gave up Ocean Soul. Like they just don't look like a polished team. So I feel like this team is really going to drop. I don't even think this team's going to make playoffs. I still don't think they're going to make playoffs, even though they're 5-3 and they have like a massive advantage. Obviously, like they should at this point. But I really think that this team is low key, is like secretly bad. And even with Smithy playing better than I thought he would, like I thought he was going to be one of the worst junglers. Right now, I had him like when I tried to rate all the junglers, I had him at 5th best jungler in the league. Which is definitely way better than I thought. Even with him performing well, I still feel like the team is bad. Like Ika is worse than I thought he'd be. Their bot lane, I actually don't mind Altec playing Ezreal. I feel like that's one of his best champions. I want to see more Ezreal Yuumi out of them, stuff like that, because they just play to like scale and stuff.
They give up prio so much anytime he touches that champ.
Yeah, but I mean, they give up prio regardless. If you like remember the game where they played Nautilus Xayah into MF
Hakuo's been good though. I feel like if Hakuo got paired up with a strong AD, they could be really strong bot lane, but Altec kind of gets them.
Kind of. I mean, I don't know. It just seems like they're just not like they lost 2v2 to Stixxay and Smoothie, and everyone thinks Stixxay and Smoothie is pretty bad right now. Like, I don't think that this team is good at all. Like, they have decent like idea of how to play the game, and they have a lot of people that are used to winning. So I feel like they just get a lot of wins by being more calm and being like smarter than other teams, or like kind of identifying opportunities in game. But once like as everyone improves, it's going to be harder and harder for them to win because this team just has no firepower on it. That was my whole criticism at the beginning. And it's still there. Like, who's gonna fucking carry this? Like,
they have a lot of brains. They have Soaz and Xmithy. They have all the brains, but no firepower. That's actually a perfect way to put it.
Yeah, great. Like, I mean, brains are good, but I mean, at the end of the day, like, League of Legends requires some degree of mechanics to play. And like, if you look at their overall mechanical like level, I would say that this is probably like the worst mechanical team in LCS. Like, even CLG should have a higher mechanical ceiling than this team.
I think. So you're a not for this lack of firepower squad, Dom?
Oh, I am a not. I am a super not. I think that I don't even think that they're gonna make playoffs.
You know,
let's get to our favorite section, Daniel.
Yeah, I will. Just my last point here is because they were running Blabber's freaking win rate, you know, all over the place. It's like 78% win rate. Xmithy. Before this, Xmithy has been around for a very long time, boys and girls. He played for a shitty team called Vulcan, not the player, but the actual team that turned into XDG. If you take away those stats from before that, so 2015 on, his win rate is like insane. It's insane.
Who cares about win rate? It's like, yeah, the team,
Huni Rainover had insane win rate. They never won LCS.
Yeah, well, I mean, for me, it's like if you're on a top team, your win rate's going to be super, super good overall. Like, that doesn't necessarily mean you're like an insane player, in my opinion.
But
like,
over 5 years, that win rate being high means that he's kind of the constant on these top teams. He's been the constant everywhere he's gone. So it just feels difficult to now like
if CLG picked up Xmithy tonight. That's not going to give CLG like a winning chance. I know the win rate matters, but the context around the players he has also matters.
I might take that. I might take that if CLG pick up Xmithy. Not that it's Wiggly's fault. It's the Xmithy glue. He's the glue guy. He's the magic. I think that that might fix some of those things.
I mean, it's just like I hate this whole idea of like win rate just being used as a stat to indicate anything, because you can have like. People will be like, oh, well, Grasp has a higher win rate than Conquer on set, so I'm going to just take Grasp every game. And it's like, well, like, it all just depends on the context. Like, how good is Xmithy, or were Xmithy's teams when he was playing for them? Like, how good are Blabber's teams? Like, I don't think that Blabber is the best player in the history of the LCS because he has the highest win rate, you know? It's like, oh, so wait, so like he only played for Cloud9, and Cloud9 has been like one of the most dominant teams in the league. So obviously his win rate is going to be higher than somebody like Dardog, for example, who played on like CLG when they were kind of shit, TL when they were shit, like Immortals when they were shit, you know, like, I don't know. I just feel like win rate just doesn't really matter. It's just such like a overused statistic.
Yeah. All right. So Immortals 5-3, according to former Optic analyst Croissant Law in the chat, saying they would have to go 3-7 to not make playoffs. So thank you for that little tidbit, Croissant. But let's move to a team that might miss playoffs. Teams don't think they will, but that's TSM. So they take 2 steps forward in week 3, going 2-0, and we're like, yeah, this is the Dardog we've been waiting to see. Just shitting on kids. Bjergsen looks unlocked. Kabe's getting adjusted. BB's back, and then they go 0-2 this weekend, losing expectedly to Cloud9, and then dropping their second game. What do these guys need to fix? What's wrong with TSM here?
Fix your fucking draft! Why the fuck are you playing Akali Renekton? TSM's actually just fucking inting draft. I have no idea why, but they cannot draft properly. The Akali Renekton game was really fucking bad. And versus FlyQuest, they gave away Ornn for free. And they opted into Pantheon Talia. I don't get why TSM has this obsession about we need to play these comps that needs to execute. Like, it's completely fine being the scaling comp. The thing is, Aphelios is OP, but I think you can run Aphelios against Misfortune, or you can run Misfortune against Aphelios. You can run Zaya Rakan against Aphelios.
You can run Varus Tahm Kench into Aphelios.
Ornn has no counters. Not in NA. Like, Ornn honestly does not have counters, and people keep picking Renekton and Aatrox into Ornn, and they get outscaled so easily.
I mean, Aatrox is supposed to... So, like, everyone thinks that Aatrox is a counter to Ornn. Like, it hard beats Ornn. Which, like, theoretically it does, but we're just not good enough to end the games, like, before the Ornn starts scaling. So I think that's an issue. I actually really don't mind these losses because, like, the Pantheon Talia game, like, I feel like they have ways to win, but they're trying to actually, like, get better as a team. So, like, they're using these games to, like, actually improve their team level, and they're still, like, the most proactive team next to C9 in the league, where they actually set up plays and go for plays. Like, they have draft ideas and plans, which I like, you know, like their Pantheon Talia comp is, hey, they have MF Yuumi bot lane. We are going to fucking dive them over and over again, and they can't play the game. And the execution wasn't there, but they still pull a 10k gold lead. So for me, it's like, if they want to win this game, sure, first rotation or before the second ban phase, you just take Syndra there, right? You take Syndra for Bjergsen. You play like Syndra fucking plus any jungler, Syndra, Rek'Sai, whatever the fuck you want, and you just win that game. You get Rek'Sai into Lee Sin, you get Syndra, which is Bjergsen's best champion. You just win. Like other teams are banning Syndra. I feel like they're just trying to like round out their team more. But yeah, I mean, I think the teams are kind of misguided. I mean, like even talking to BB, like every top laner in NA just thinks that Aatrox hard shits on Ornn, and sure you can maybe manage like a 20 CS lead or something, but the Ornn just scales so much, and it just seems so difficult to play.
He does so much. He helps with the scaling. He gives your team an engage. He gives your team a front line. Like, just Ornn does way too... And LS is in chat, and he mentioned Soraka Fiora. Soraka is one of the most OP champions in the game, so I think it's unfair to say use Soraka to counter Ornn.
And will be nerfed.
Yeah. And so she's always off the board. And for the Fiora counter into Ornn, like the split push way to counter Ornn is not really viable in North America. It just is not.
Yeah,
so
I mean, there should be ways to like actually like get pressure. Like a bunch of the side laners should theoretically be good into Ornn. Like another one that people used to talk about was Camille, because Camille has some like there's like some mind games in the matchup because Camille can actually E off the
Q.
the Q from Orin, the little pillar. So
the
like
ult to dodge.
So yeah, so you can ult to dodge stuff. You can E like if the Orin E's, you can E and you have priority over the slam. So like there's some things like that, but I just don't like. I mean, I could see some teams trying to go like the Fiora Sejuani route, the Camille Sejuani route.
It's
and they just
way
try to,
too difficult to execute, and it's just not consistent enough.
Yeah, I mean,
like,
I
teams cannot do it.
I feel like that's okay if you're getting something in return, but all these teams give away Ornn for free. Like they actually just give it for absolute free. It's like, oh, what did you get for Ornn Aphelios? Elise? The fuck? Conquer Elise for Grig? Like this shit is just not acceptable to me.
That's actually mind blowing. I think there were 2 teams that got Aphelios Ornn together. I think other than Soraka, who's always permaban, Aphelios Ornn are the 2 most OP champions. So how the fuck are teams getting Aphelios Ornn together? It is literally just straight into draft.
I'm completely okay with giving Aphelios to take Ornn and then a bot lane that's like fine into Aphelios, because Aphelios doesn't dominate like these champions in lane. Like there's 3 bot lanes that I think are fine into Aphelios, which are Leona MF, Tahm Kench Varus, and Xayah Rakan. And I feel like if you're getting one of those and the Ornn for the Aphelios, the trade is fine. Yeah, but like these teams, like they're not trading well at all. Like there's no trade at all.
So Dom, you love Peter, I love Lust. I actually think it is somewhat of a coaching problem, because I think players will have always this mindset of, I can play Aatrox into Ornn. I can play these like 55-45 matchups and not make a mistake the entire game and take over the whole game by split pushing or by being more effective than the other dude. That is such a player mindset, and it's so far from reality. People mess up. You might not personally mess up. Your jungler might mess up. But there's just so many things that can go wrong. So I really think coaching staff should be way more hard-handed on TSM and like make sure they're not opting into these kind of drafts.
Yeah, I mean, but that's like goes back to like what I'm saying. Like when you have a team that's like one of the most proactive teams in NA, like outside of C9, they're the team that I think is probably the second best, regardless of score, etc. I feel like you want to actually take the regular season to improve. Like I don't think that there's a world where TSM doesn't make playoffs, right? So if they're actually able to nail down some of these concepts, right, and they're like able to actually hard dive bot, like that is something that they can play Pantheon Taliyah. It doesn't have to always be Pantheon Taliyah every single game, right? Like, but if they're able to, like, that's like probably the comp that gives you the easiest, like it should be the easiest to execute in terms of like bot lane dives. Like if you're able to nail down some of these concepts, I think you'll be a better team overall, where you understand where to pink, like how to set up the dive bottom, which waves to sack mid if you're going to do it, like how to like how to clear out vision and how to really exploit a bot lane, like when you have a 2v2 advantage. I feel like that could be super useful in the long run. So these types of games, like where they're up 10k and lose, I know it looks horrible, it's like a massive throw. I feel like this is like a good experience for TSM to have.
Let's end on the final Lena thing.
Yeah, so we have our tweet of the week coming from TSM president Lena Zhu. I need to solo this. Where...
Oh man, I thought it was gonna be the double lift one.
No.
I love the double lift one.
It wasn't a tweet. It wasn't a tweet. It was an Instagram post. But yes, it is our tweet of the week. Let's just make sure people know.
Someone was popping off about like, why are we so far behind 100 Thieves? Meow meow meow. Like a disillusioned TSM fan that followed TSM because all they did was win And then after they started losing, kind of lost identity in the brand, Lena pops off like this. Look at their league team and look at ours. She's talking about 100 Thieves. Look at their Fortnite division, then look at ours. Look at their R6, Apex, Smash influencer division, then look at ours. Nate is my friend, and yeah, they have sick merch, but compare everything. Our facility, compare that too. Under my leadership, that was cool. We're rebuilding league core with younger, more long-term players. BB Kabe got bio back, invested into Fortnite with Myth, Hams, and Day, who I personally signed. Added new games to our portfolio: PUBG, Fortnite, Apex, R6, and Rocket League. Added new business ventures, events, influencers, etc. And oh, by the way, TSM is the only profitable org. That was a clapback pop-up if I've ever heard one before, and it was pretty sick. But so there's a lot to digest in there. Go ahead, Loco.
Yeah. So Lena says she'll explain over YouTube. One thing I think that is slightly not fair regarding saying TSM is the only profitable org. I'm not sure if she's going to include the website and the app part of it. Yes, that is under TSM branch, but that's Andy's like side business outside of esports. So I'm not sure if that can be considered for TSM. Like TSM is more profitable due to like, hey, these giant like revenues we're generating from things outside of esports.
Yeah, like the Blitz app, etc.
Yeah. So maybe it is without that and TSM is profitable, then I'll be really impressed. But yeah, Lena clapping back at this like
random
one dude.
person. Like, I was like, what happened? Like,
I love this shit. I love flaming the random person. Just
yeah.
It's way more direct than that person probably expects. But I mean, I don't know. I mean, I just like I obviously don't have that much information into like how much every team makes, etc. I would say that overall, like I haven't considered like when I think about the best orgs, right? Like the people or the orgs
TL,
that are considered
100 Thieves,
well,
TSM,
it's normally TL and C9
Cloud9.
is what people are saying right now. Like I feel like TSM kind of like they had so much momentum in league, and then I feel like they kind of just they went like the wrong direction. Like they had like the most popular, the best team, and they tried to like I think they set their aspirations to like win worlds, and as a result, they've lost so many fans to this point. So maybe they're the only profitable org, but I feel like they potentially like could have been more profitable if they made better decisions earlier on.
But that is kind of where like the angle Lena is taking, because TSM was at the very tippy top regarding everything, and then they're not at the very tippy top. And so people just shit on TSM any chance that they get. Like even fucking casters shit on TSM at Worlds. So Lena just going off on somebody and also telling rest of the world, hey, you might think TSM is not where we're supposed to be, but we're actually doing good work on other aspects that you guys don't see and you guys don't give us credit for.
Sure. I mean, I think a lot of like the way that people deal with esports right now is their mentality is like, obviously it's not super profitable right now, but they're trying to position themselves to be like leaders in the industry. So it's for like when theoretically the money does start coming in hard. So that like, so I mean, I guess you have like two different mentalities. You can either try to make it as profitable as possible right now, or you can try to like get a team that wins or like get teams that win. Like if you look at TL across all esports and C9 across all esports and their performances and their placings compared to TSM, they're way better in general, right? So a lot of people are willing to sacrifice like profitability now in order to like establish themselves as like champions. So I don't necessarily view that this doesn't mean to me that TSM is a better org than TL or C9 just because they might be slightly more profitable right now. Like I don't think that the number one thing that I evaluate an org success on is profitability.
Yeah. I mean, the best part about this clapback is I loved how she still toots her own horn because it needs to be done a lot with women in esports and with a lot of the people that do a lot of the work in the background and don't get the credit for it. Under my leadership is what she said.
As someone that worked with Lena and Andy, Lena did do a lot for TSM, and I'm sure she still does a lot, but everyone just brands her as, oh, this is Andy's girlfriend. That's why she has a job. Oh, she's dating Double It for money. That's far from the truth. Like, Lena's successful on her own 2 feet.
Yep.
Yeah, well, I think that what people's argument is like, would she have been the president of TSM if she didn't date Reginald?
She probably wouldn't be president of TSM, but she would probably, like, I feel like Lena's smart enough to go on and do her own shit, maybe outside of esports.
Yeah. I think the opportunity itself would have been different, but like she's earned it and deserves it and is deserving.
She's like doing a good job. I guess it was just like fast tracked by her relationship.
Yeah. And then the other thing is because again, I made the graphic artist work on this meme, is because she's so busy running TSM as the business entity, it frees up one Reggie Daddy to come back on in and slap the shit out of the kids and get themselves back to world domination. Daddy Reggie's back, boys and girls. You got to deal with that shit. He's coming in. I'm sure he's going to bully the fuck out of whoever's coaching right now and be like, shut up, kids, get out of the way, Daddy's home. And he's going to lead them back to a championship.
Andy said he wouldn't be involved again.
I don't believe him.
From what I know, he kept his word. But TSM is doing pretty okay, so we'll see. We'll keep an eye on it.
We'll see, especially after going 0-2. He was in the smoothie bar as well, and TSM gets first blood on Blabber and goes, God, what a trash. He said something about Blabber like, all you have to do is flash that. I can't believe he didn't flash it. It was like a point blank body slam. There was no way Elise was going to flash that. And then watch and proceed to see like Cloud9 dismantle TSM. So I think being there in person for that and being like, you know what, 4-4, it's taking a little while. I've got a little bit of free time. I'd love to see Reggie come back on in and get the boys in shape.
I really want it to be just the coaching staff. If Peter and Lus fails, then let them fail on their own and actually learn, and let's not repeat fucking 2019, 2018, 2017, 2016, 2015.
Well, I mean, the thing about all that I think is like, even if they do fail on their own, TSM is never patient at all with like their players. Like, they're the opposite of Golden Guardians, right? So if they fail, I don't even feel like Kha'zix got a whole season. Like, technically he was head coach for a whole season, but it didn't feel like
he only got spring really. Where
yeah, like summer already felt like it was like Peter was mainly coaching TSM. So it's like,
I thought it was Parth coaching, or not coaching,
sure,
but Parth making more decisions.
Sure, like whoever it is, my whole point is like they're not going to be patient enough. So if he like lets them fail, I don't really think that it's going to like improve the org, because they're just going to replace him and get new people next year. It's going to be, all right, fuck Lustboy and Peter. Like, who can we get now? Like, who's our next?
I mean,
person to coach the team.
I think it's a great point on what they should do, but I think history says that, you know, that's not what they do. So we'll see. All right, so we sped through the back half of that episode, but Facecheck episode 5 in the books. Thank you so much, guys, for watching. Dom's about to go do Twitch Rivals. Yeah, he's about to go play, so make sure to check out Twitch Rivals. I, unfortunately, not hosting Twitch Rivals this week. I have 2 fantastic weddings back in Washington, D.C. and Virginia, so I'll be back over there this weekend, but I'll be doing Twitch Rivals the next time they have it, as long as they have me back. Please Twitch Rivals. And obviously, you'll catch us here. Hey, you don't know that. We used to sit in the dressing room and watch anything beforehand. We'd watch like streamers stream, watch Yasuo int before he played his matches.
I'm gonna get to see that up close in person today.
Yeah, Loco, Dom, Loco, do you have anything else you want to say?
See, this is not the last episode of Facecheck, huh, guys?
Yeah, I mean, little does he know I'm replacing him next week.
Yikes.
We talked.
Thanks for the warning.
Yeah.
All right,
Red
guys.
will love me.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being nice to me and making sure Loco doesn't be mean to me. We appreciate you guys. It's been a lot of fun. We'll catch you guys next week for Facecheck. See ya.